Now, Jackie?
No, it still says waiting.
Try refreshing.
Oh, there it is.
Try refreshing, Jackie. Okay.
Okay, go
All
ahead.
right, we're good to
ISG.
go. Well, just want to start off saying thank you guys very much for allowing us to be here today and interviewing for this. We're super excited to be able to be in this room, tell you guys a little bit more about ourselves, our approach, our firm, and the partnership that we see with the city moving forward. So quick introductions. I am Justin Hine, licensed civil engineer in the state of South Dakota. Started my career in 2016 after I graduated from Iowa State University. Started my career in Des Moines Metro, working very primarily with the city of West Des Moines, the city of Grimes, the city of Ames. In that role, learned a lot about city infrastructure, growth of the communities, expansion, and just got a whole breadth of knowledge, whether it was construction administration, design, helping clients solve these problems and getting those solutions towards. Spent about 5 years in the Des Moines Metro before moving up to Sioux Falls. So currently living in Sioux Falls, work out of our Sioux Falls office, lead the office and our local team there. So it's been super rewarding moving to South Dakota, being able to get to work with folks like yourself. Very passionate about the outdoors, so being able to get to that itch to living here in South Dakota. So currently working in the municipal engineering realm within our public works business unit with several clients across the state that we can go into a little further. But we'll turn it over to Rachel for a
Yeah,
quick introduction.
good afternoon. It's good to see you guys. My name is Rachel Close. I'm a water wastewater group leader with ISG. I'm based in the Sioux Falls office. A little bit different background than what Justin has. I am a long-term South Dakota resident, so everybody at Dare knows me. Everybody, got that really good relationship. Previous to being with ISG, which I've been there a little over 5 years, I worked at Poet here down in Chancellor. I was a plant manager there, and a lot of other experiences for doing a lot of environmental water, wastewater. And I am super passionate about water and wastewater. And if anyone has ever had a conversation with me, that's something that I like to talk about significantly. And working with communities, we like to start thinking outside the box, not only with ISG using our experiences in other states, which we've got lots of experiences in Iowa, Wisconsin, things like that. So we can look at some of those new experiences or maybe something we haven't looked at, but then also knowing South Dakota very well and understanding how we operate and how we want to move forward. So very excited to be here. Excited for you guys to get to know a little bit more about ISG.
So obviously Rachel and I are here, but we just really want to reiterate that there are so many professionals behind us that help us with the day-to-day, whether it's, getting them on the specific project, getting their insight, understanding what's happening in other geographies, other situations that help bring everything to light. We did highlight some of those folks on the handout, your team kind of on the bottom left there, just to get some faces there. And really what we want to provide you guys the confidence in is that we truly do have an individual for every single situation. Myself would be the primary point of contact, but I am not going to limit the city to our expertise, right? We want to bring in our experts for every single project to give you guys the best project experience and the best project at the end of the day. Rachel talked about her passion of water and wastewater. It is her passion. She is an expert in that. She has done a lot of projects with that. If we do have a project like that, Rachel's going to be alongside. She's going to be working with us to get to our solution. With me having the understanding of the community, your guys' goals and visions aligned with our team, that's where we can really make a difference. So there's a small group of folks in there with wide background, but we are 500 employees strong. ISG is employee owned. So we have that ownership mentality of everybody jumping in the project to make it the best project for the community and for us. Rolling into some of the fun stuff that we really wanted to talk today is some of the municipal engineering. So the reason why we're here is you guys are interviewing for general engineering services, and I would like to say our approach is a little different than others. we look at engineering as engineering, right? But one of those primary aspects that we want to pull into that is planning. We understand that proactive planning aligned with the city's goals is going to give us direction and give you guys direction to meet those in the middle. A few good examples that we have done is some of the capital improvement planning across the state of South Dakota, working with you guys, with others, that's really helping identify what the needs are, where your guys' infrastructure is, and getting that plan with the buy-in, right? It gives the commission a chance to rank, provide priorities, public works staff provide priorities, and then some of the data and background behind it. Not only do we have a prioritized list, but then we're really diving into some of those funding aspects too, right? Whenever we come into a community, the number one concern is funding. How are we going to get these projects done, right? We all understand city budgets are limited. So what can we do to get our best return on investment on our projects, but also identify some additional funding measures, right? Whether that's grants, opportunities, looking at economic development opportunities as well. It's a big thing when we look at the Sioux Falls Metro and the growth here. If the community is growing, if that is a desire, where can we leverage some of these additional funds to meet your guys' goals? At the end of the day, to have resilient infrastructure, houses for the folks that are coming in, a strong industrial park, those are some of those key components that really makes a community the community. But even backing up, that alignment of goals is really what's going to drive that, right? Every community is unique, every community is different. If we're not aligned here, we're not going to get to the end. So starting with that goal, that planning, it's going to drive everything. In addition to some of the capital improvement planning, we've done some community development plans. You may ask, what is a community development plan? It's taking those goals on a bigger level, looking at some of the economic development. What's the future of the school? What's the future of housing? What's the future of industry? Start to identify some of those land areas around the city. Couple that with your comprehensive plan. When we're making strategic decisions on if there's a development going up there, does it make sense to extend and upsize utilities at that point? Does it align with our goals? Do we have a plan that backs that up? It's the data that backs that up. Those are some of those things that we always want to think, and we're going to challenge a little bit. But that's where we help try to get to that next level, right? Align with you guys, challenge you a little bit, but that gives you guys the opportunity to say, yes, we want to go that direction, or no, let's regroup and rethink, right? And it's okay to say no. That's our job. We're going to always provide options. And if you guys aren't saying no to some, that's where we just need to continue to figure out that relationship, right? Because not everything is going to be for the city of Canton. You guys as commissioners, mayor, finance officer, city administrator, you guys are sitting in the community on the day-to-day. You guys are talking to the residents. You guys are getting that feedback. We will interject ourselves in the community because we want to be here too. But we need to pull all that information and work together as a common goal to get to where we want to be.
Yeah, and I'll add to that,
Yeah, talk in front of there, because
talk in
people
front of the
listening.
microphone, awesome. Fantastic. I'll add to that planning can be big and small. It doesn't always have to be, I always talk about do we want to be the water park capital of South Dakota, or do we want to do something different? So this can be as simple as how we're managing our daily budgets and daily capital spending to everything from large projects that we would expand to in the future. So that planning component becomes a roadmap, if you will, for how the city is going to run and what we're looking at and how much transparency. We're very big on planning and that proactive approach so that we've got that roadmap moving forward, that you've got transparency with your community members as well as with each other moving forward. So it helps a lot.
Absolutely. I think one of the other big things that goes hand in hand is our communication and our clarity between city engineer, commission, and then the public as well. So being super passionate about that, we're always going to have open dialogue, open communication. A few things that we like to do is just have, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, every third week, sit down with staff, mayor, finance officer, city administrator, and just go over the current project list, what we have going, and making sure we're aligned. It's a good opportunity to open up that communication, have those items that come up, and really document that too. Follow up with meeting minute notes that we can provide to you guys Because one of the big things, if Andrew and I are having a conversation, it's making sure that gets to the rest of you guys as well too. It gives him an easy mode just to see that email, have those meeting minutes, hit that forward button. And that sparks some of that other communication and understanding what that train of communication goes, right? So if all of it's filtered through Andrew or Kyle or Mayor, right? It's getting that means, having that flow and that understanding. In addition, it's our attendance at council meetings and providing updates for that too. We found a lot of success in providing engineering reports for the commission for council meetings. So in addition to those bi-weekly meeting minutes, that maybe get a little bit more granular, it's broad overview of all the projects that we're working on, maybe some funding opportunities and things that are going on in the industry. Rachel talked a lot about her connections with DANR, and she's always having her ear to the ground, whether it's at a conference, conversations with them, when you're working with them on permitting. And that's a lot of good information for you guys to know. When we talk lead and copper service line replacement, right? It's a program where there's always questions, to it, right? So if we can provide some of that information quicker to you guys and the residents, that's where we get benefit.
And that's really where we want to focus. That communication is not only going to be focusing on projects that we have in process or maybe looking backwards, but it's also going to be looking forward. What's coming up on the horizon? Are there new regulations that we need to be concerned with? New economic development opportunities, new development opportunities that maybe we've run into in other communities that could be an advantage here. We want to make sure that that's a good point of communication. And we found that to be very successful. We want you to be in the know so that we can think about it. It's amazing how easy it is to have a conversation when you bring up, Justin brought up lead and copper, and we were constantly bringing this up to communities, and communities were like, wait a second, we need to think of a plan. So we got that on the plan and started to look at it. Prior to it being an emergency, we're up to the limit. So really proactively looking at stuff. We want to not only look forward, but we want to look backward and with our current projects.
Just one other thing I noted on a little bit here, but just our partnership with our community, we really want to be an extension of your guys' staff. So feel like you guys can pick up the phone, like we're with you guys, right? We're all here for the common mission, and that's for the success of Canton, right? So you guys can call us up anytime. We are here for you guys. If you guys need us here in City Hall, council chambers, we're going to be here. That's relationship and the bond that we want to build. I'm big on relationships, right? So building a relationship with you guys would be my number one goal. Working with people that we like to work with, that's where we get a lot of our success. Going to roll into a little bit of our project experience now, just to give you guys a little flavor of what we've been doing in South Dakota for the past couple of years, and hit on some key elements. The first one I'll start with is the city of Hartford. So we have been appointed engineer in Hartford since 2021. And it's been a real fun success story. I have no doubt that all the engineers that you guys are going to interview today are good engineers and they can do good engineering. Some feedback that we were provided there was when ISG came in, we started to get the city to think bigger. We challenged them. We gave them stretch goals. And not every one of those visions or alternatives came to life, but it sparked conversation. So it may not have gone left with the community. See some of the vision. If we aren't pushing you guys to think bigger on some of that stuff, we're not doing our job, right? But we also have the awareness and the understanding matched with your guys' goals to know what doesn't fit too. Every community is different. There's not a one size fits all. So we have a lot of experience in Hartford, similar sized community, similar growth. Is it going to work in Canton? Some stuff, yes. Other stuff, no. Everybody is a little different. So being able to tailor those solutions towards you guys, but providing those alternatives to consider. Wastewater treatment facility, I think, is a very cool success story. And maybe Rachel can dive into that because she loves wastewater.
Yeah. So it's probably been a year and a half ago, we came down here and did a regionalization study for you guys, coupled with the community of Worthing. And one of the things we talked about was Hartford. And that's what we're working on at Hartford, is to regionalize that facility up there. And the goal was to not only look at what Hartford's immediate needs were, but to start looking at where that 15, 20-year growth plan looks like and where Hartford wanted to fit into that growth plan. So that was something that we brought to the table, and we said, hey, this doesn't have to be something that you need to look at right now, but we want to make sure that anything that we're doing kind of takes into account where you want to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. And we started to think bigger. And maybe that's our motto for today, is we wanted to start thinking bigger. So the wastewater treatment plant, as you guys know, they're currently controlled discharge lagoons over at Hartford, and we needed to meet ammonia standards. Probably sounds familiar, right? And so what we looked at is, what are the options for improvements there? Everything from modifying the existing lagoons and adding some additional treatment there to building a brand new facility. And what we ultimately landed on is a selection and a location of a wastewater treatment facility that's expandable and ready for growth, to not only pick up industrial growth, but also regionalization growth from some of the communities around there. And so we're primed and ready. The 1.5 million gallon per day plant is going to be starting up this summer. We're actually getting started probably in April to start moving water through the system. But the idea here is to start thinking bigger, right? We wanted to make sure that we were aligned with what the community goals were, whether it was housing, additional population, the Dairy Queen coming in, that's important too, right? All those different things. We wanted to make sure that even when we're looking at water and wastewater, that we were aligned with everything else that came through. So again, starting to think bigger as we look at some of those options.
Another project that's top of mind, and I think it's really cool to share with the city of Hartford, is some recent parks planning exercises that we're going through. So through communication with the mayor and the council, there was a strong desire to have a sidewalk implementation plan. And the root cause of that was just to get folks to the school, to our major hubs within our community. Due to some of the old parts of the community, there just isn't sidewalk, right? So you start to get gaps within your system. So based on that initiative, we rallied around the common goal of, let's get a plan together and start getting a plan that can be implemented. So we sat down with them, we identified the gaps in the sidewalk, and then where the best place is to invest our dollars right now. And that's really getting the most people to the school, to the downtown as we can. And we came up with essentially a 3-phase project that had different priorities. We aligned that with South Dakota Transportation TAP grant that has a funding of about $600,000 potentially for that. And we applied it, and that's how we broke down some of our phases, right? Align a grant with some of our goals and get that implementation. Now, we all do know that's a tough grant to get, but we're working hard towards that. In the background, we're starting to analyze what are some additional opportunities that we can do to fund these, right? We always want to have a couple different tools in our toolbox to get that implemented. In addition, we do know Hartford's a growing community. They had a parkland dedication portion as part of their planning and zoning. So every subdivision would have to dedicate some parkland, right? There was a fee that could be associated with that. And really what we found, the developers were paying that fee, but it wasn't quite enough to get the return on investment to get those parks in those areas. So we decided to take a step back and look at the community as a whole, identify what our existing parks were, where our proposed developments are, and what we really wanted each one of those to look like, right? So whether it's a pocket park or a big city park, and we can start to be strategic in knowing where those are going to be, right? It's a little bit more proactive approach when we think about our dollars and our time on the public works staff, just mowing and maintaining these things. Are we going to have big parks in every little 80-acre development? Probably not, right? So let's work with that together as a community, as a council, but then it's also providing clear direction for our developers when they're coming into town and looking at what we have for planning documents, right? And that gets them energized and provides some of that clear direction for them. Going into our next one, and we could talk Hartford all day, but for the sake of time, we'll hit a few other examples. Fort Pierre has been a really fun community to work with. And we included a quote in there, and I'll just read it for you guys real quick. As a small community with limited resources, we needed help creating a vision for future planning. ISG's team had to help us with plans that identify possibilities, reflect our core values, offer creative but practical ideas, and give us a roadmap for the future. We're beyond grateful. So that's really rewarding when we hear some of those comments, right? Aligning with our core values, the planning, the vision, the alignment, right? And that starts with that planning, and that's really the first project that we had with the city of Fort Pierre was going through some of these exercises to identify what we can do to get some, it was more quality of life amenities in the city of Fort Pierre. You know, they were a little limited. They wanted some identity. We were able to go through a process, apply for an EDA grant, and get $1.8 million award for what we're dubbing as the Tatanka Trail along the Missouri River and the highway project. So it's a really cool transformational project that really pulls in the natural history of South Dakota, the natural geography out there, and puts little nameplates on Fort Pierre. But that EDA grant was so critical for them. Limited budget, streets, utilities. It's hard to dedicate some stuff to the quality of life amenities. By coupling that with the EDA grant, we were able to achieve that goal. Fast forward, the relationship continued to bring in multiple different resources to help the city. So we've been working with them for their 2023 to 2025 street improvements. Hope to see that continue, but became a trusted advisor through that process and provided them solutions for that. When we started with the street improvements projects, it was generally driving around town, seeing what street was bad, and then going with that. May have been a few calls from some of the public identifying it. Sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We wanted to get a little bit more data-driven process for that. So what we did for them was create a pavement management plan. Essentially what a pavement management plan is we work with a sub-consultant that goes and drives all the streets. And they develop what's called a pavement condition index. So that's based on the, condition of the roadway. So it analyzes the cracks in the roadway, the bumps, everything, right? So at the end of the day, we have a map that we can color code from red to green and clearly see these are the bad streets, these are the good streets, and there's data that backs everything up. We couple that with some other data on the usage of the street, residents impacted, and then we can provide clear direction to the council on recommendations for street improvements. We can go to them and say, we have these 5 different streets. Here's the PCI, here's the impact, here's our proposal. That helps them give information to their constituents. When that one neighbor is asking, why are we always doing this street, or this street? There's data behind it. We're using the city monies to get the worst street replaced as possible. So that data-driven process, super cool for the investment of Fort Pierre to do that and provide that for the residents.
Yeah, and I'll add to give Justin a couple minutes to catch his breath there, but the pavement management plan is probably one of my favorite plans to see, and we actually completed that in Britton, South Dakota as well. And in that instance, where you would have those communities, we would say, okay, why is that street getting repaired versus this street? And then also looking, how should we repair that street? One of the exercises that we did up at Britton is looked at what is the width of the street. At the time, it was, I think, 40 feet, right?
Yeah.
40-foot width. And so we were able to analyze and say, hey, maybe we could reduce our capital spending for streets based on the width of the street. We wanted to understand parking. So it became a really cool exercise to go through to not only make sure that got included in your capital planning for streets, but more importantly, to communicate to your constituents, right? So that they understand what the plan was. And always, right, I grew up with, my dad was a city manager, and it seemed like anytime our street was paved, it was, oh my gosh, why did they get their street paved and not someone else's, right? So this became a great plan to have so that there was a lot of transparency into where repairs and maintenance was going, and got included into your capital improvement planning as well.
Last one I'll hit on real quick is the city of Baltic, and we're using a lot of the same strategies that that we mentioned with other communities. But when we came into Baltic, there was some transition, there were some other things top of mind, and really from my perspective, it was fun to come in there and provide the guidance and the expertise that they were really searching for in an engineer at that time and help guide them through some difficult situations. So being that trusted resource, not being afraid to get into a tough situation when needed, and we're not going to shy away from that, right? We understand not everything's easy, and sometimes the hard things are what we're going to fight for because we have the most reward when those challenges get taken care of. But again, small community in South Dakota using some of that planning first approach, always making sure that we're providing clear answers to the residents, to the community on where our spending is going to is huge. Every one of these communities have surcharges on their utility bills too. So it's that communication and understanding of this is why this project was prioritized. Due to time, I'm going to jump into a little bit. We've worked with you guys before and had the pleasure of getting to know the city of Canton through some other exercises, whether it was the Lincoln County regionalization, really understanding what your guys' growth projections are, what your need for wastewater is, couple that with some of the expansions in the industrial park, get into full picture and understanding of that was a really fun exercise for us to do. Rolling into just doing some concept planning and some site selection and due diligence for housing. That was a good opportunity to look at different areas of the community, understand where utility constraints are, where utility opportunities are, and where growth opportunities are within the community. Some industrial park planning, working with Mr. Tanner, really appreciate the partnership there, but understanding some of the bigger picture, bigger vision, what can we do to really get these things off the kilter, right? How do we get some momentum going? And it's that team approach, getting creative with how we get the funding model going, how do we get everything going and pushing that through. Through the capital improvement plan, we have the opportunity to really look at all of your guys' utilities on a granular level. Being able to go through GIS system, understanding pipe size, pipe material, pipe age, understand where you guys are having breaks. Couple that with being observant during the recent flooding events too. I know when the rain started coming, I sent a few drones down here and took some pictures, documenting all that to analyze it with the information that we know. We understand that we have data in the background, but also taking those real world experiences and documenting them on that time and the time lapse of that, relating everything back, it gives us a more clear picture to provide another solutions down the road. So if we're not using all those different sources of information, that's where we may be off a little bit. So we're always going to be observant. We're always going to try to capture the moment and build that information base. And we understand the learning's not over just because we went through some of these planning exercises, just because we talked to you guys about regionalization. We understand the community's dynamic, community's always changing, and that's a continued learning curve. So through the communication, through being with you guys, extension of your staff, we're going to continue to learn, and continue to adapt, and continue to help you guys. And with that, I think we have 30 seconds left, so.
How many people total in your local office?
We have 60 folks total in Sioux Falls right now, so. Yep, we just moved into new Sharapa development, which we're very proud of, and we've got room to expand to about 90 folks in there.
You have any questions you want to ask?
I'll start with my questions. You mentioned the bi-weekly or every third week. What would you bring to that meeting?
What would we bring to it?
Discuss or-
Your question, Commissioner Garbers, was, the bi-weekly touch base, what would we bring to that meeting? My goal of that meeting is to make sure we're aligned with every project that's going on within the community, and then also touch on some of the other things that we're hearing from the externals, right? So generally, we'll have a project list. that starts maybe with site plan and plat reviews. Hit all those, understand where those projects are in the process, if they're in construction, what the acceptance process is. If there are any hurdles, let's talk about that as a team, make sure we're all aligned. Next would go into active projects. So doing 3rd Street reconstruction, here's the status, this is what's going on. We are having a little redundancy because we're holding bi-weekly construction meetings over here too, but it's always a good check on that list just to make sure nothing happened in between those times. Documentation, making sure we're all on the same page. At the end of it is where we look into the future. You know, what are future opportunities? What are we seeing on the horizon? What are some things that we can start capitalizing on now? And what we see is some of those items on the back end, they start to slide up in, you know, have our projects. It changes based on time of year too. Once we start getting into budgeting season, that's when we pull out that capital improvement plan. Sit there, go through what are our priorities for the coming year? Does that still align? Yes or no? Make those adjustments, update cost estimates. Here's your updated capital improvement plan.
Do we pay for your time in the same way when we're having meetings as we do when you're at the office designing something for us?
So 2 different things. Generally, we will run like those meetings under a general engineering contract. And we say that general engineering is for everything going on within the city, right? So if you call me and we have a conversation about XYZ, general engineering. When we go into project specific, that's when we'll have a separate proposal. But what we're also going to commit on is if we do have overlap, we're going to make sure that, hey, that's within this project, that's within that scope, let's be and build there and making sure we don't have the overlap on the 2.
So for general engineering, we budget for say $10,000, general engineering.
And it's always a good communication piece with the communities as well when we get to the budgeting. What does it look like projected for general engineering services this year, right? And we can look back at what we did. You know, do we anticipate more site plans coming in, more review time, some of that thing? Yes, we do. Let's maybe increase that 5%. The big thing is our communication and our clarity, right? So having those meetings, at the end of the day, I don't want to send you guys an invoice that you guys are surprised on, right? So even within our invoices, breaking that down, whether it's general engineering, council meeting, streets, utilities, by having some description underneath that too, right? So this task was for this item, right? We can align that to what our agenda has, what our meeting minutes note has, and making sure we're justifying it. Like I said, never want to surprise you guys. Make sure you guys get the value, feel the value, and we're going to do that through our actions.
Would you think that you would still be able to work with Jeff in the economic development, or would you need to separate from them so that you can review broad plans when they?
It's a very good question. We get asked that a lot. From my perspective, I'm always going to run with the integrity and making sure that if you guys are paying ourselves as city engineer, that I have your best interest in mind, right? If we do have a conflicting project, we're either going to tell Jeff, hey, we can't do that, or have a conversation with you guys. We do have a team and XYZ geography that is very specialized in that. They're going to run that. We're going to continue to work with you. I will also say we understand the importance of economic development and city cooperation and pushing in the right direction too. So there naturally, I will say, is a lot of overlap in the community that's growing and working together.
Any others?
Rachel, I had a question for you. You mentioned you work with DNR quite closely.
Yeah.
Benefits for being close with them. I mean, what do you
Sure.
know ahead of time or what?
Yeah,
what do you know?
I think it's important to, number one, make sure that we're up and on and as to what's happening. So the process at DNR is going to be a lot of vetting and a lot of communication prior to any regulations or new guidance documents coming out. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to be aware of those things, having those regular communications with DNR to make sure that we understand where things are happening and what the idea is. we don't want to be in a situation where we're surprised, right? So that becomes a major issue. Having those relationships with Dana allows us to make sure that we're asking questions. I'm a big one where we say, you know what, we're going to get them in the loop. I want them as part of this process, whatever we're going through, so that we can find a solution together. Dana doesn't like to be surprised, nor do I, right? So making sure that we've got that communication. And it's much easier when you've got those relationships to be able to make a phone call and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about. Now, I'll use the regionalization study that we did, for example. We brought Dana involved in that and looked at it. We walked through the whole regionalization study and got their feedback, right? So that when they were asked about it, whether it was from the governor's office or something like that, they had an awareness and we were aligned with what their instincts were for discharge permits and things like that. So just keeping in mind, we want that for that proactive communication. You guys are in a unique situation with your vicinity to Iowa. So we also have a really close relationship with Iowa DNR, or DNR. And so that's another advantage. We've got lots of communities that we participate with Iowa DNR, and we've got that same relationship with Iowa DNR.
You can work with both states at the same
Oh,
time.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. In fact, I was just at one of the things that I'm working on right now is setting up some co-op groups in which we're going to do South Dakota and Iowa together and do some co-op work together, which is going to be really fun.
Were you involved in any lobbying effort with Senator Thune or Rounds when it came to the earmark funding for the regional system in Hartford?
No, we were not involved in any of that. We did prepare all the documentation for them, and we made presentations to them so that they were aware of the project, and then put together a lot of the guidance documents. And then as for that, we've been working really closely with the EPA process to go through that process. But they made the ask all on their own. We helped put it all together, but they made the ask, and it was a fantastic item.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate your time.
I have a couple questions.
Oh, Jackie has a couple questions here. Go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, they said with having multiple cities that you are an engineer for, how do you make sure that you prioritize like our city and our needs?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, that's great question. And it's being here and being present and aligning with your guys' needs, right? So understanding what your guys' schedule are, that biweekly touch base is always critical for us, right? We wouldn't be here if I did not have the capacity to serve you guys. We're gonna be honest with you on that, right? If we don't have capacity to do a project, we're not going to do it because that puts you guys in a tough position. It puts us in a tough position. And that's not the relationship that we want to create off the bat. So we're going to be here for you. We're going to be committed for you. And having that clear communication is going to make sure that we both get what we need.
Yeah, I'll add to that there is always, with working with multiple communities, there is always that opportunity for overlap, right? And so as a group, that's why Justin and I are both here, right? We've got an entire team behind us to make sure that we're holding our integrity and that we're putting your best interests in mind. So if that means that we're having a conversation about how we manage those conflicts of interest, if there are, we want to do that proactively at the front end of the system. They very rarely come up though, because we've got the capacity to manage them.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Thanks. The TV is kind of behind, so.
Do you have another question?
My only other question is I see all the other packets actually list an hourly rate for what your services are. Do you have an actual hourly rate that you charge?
So we did within our proposal list, it was asked for hourly rate. I don't have it on there, but standard hourly rate was $195. But what we also do is discounted for appointed engineering services. And really what the discounted reason for that is we don't want the burden of making a call come in mind on just thinking of that clicker starting on the time. We want to make sure that you guys feel comfortable making that call and not running into it, right? So that's where the discounted rate will come in because we want to be an advocate for you guys.
Did you hear that, Jackie?
Yep.
Okay.
But my only other question then is, do you guys help, find with like grants and other funding opportunities that we might need specifically? I mean, I know you have it in the brochure, but just kind of what you specifically do, can you touch base a little bit more on that?
Yeah. Broad question, probably broad answer, but yes, definitely always looking for those grant opportunities. I also want to reiterate to our collaboration with CCOG as your guys' partner as well. We're not going to overshadow that and overshadow their strengths and try to compete with that as well, right? So they're going to be along the ride with us when we're looking at these grant opportunities, understanding they're going to do a lot of the application process, working with you guys hand in hand, being that grant administrator on the back end. So we're going to work with them, but part of our mission and our goal and getting that experience from those other communities in the region is to pull those unique funding opportunities to you guys, right? So when that situation comes up, we talked about the EDA funding in Fort Pierre for some of the quality of life aspects, right? That's a good example of being able to get something implemented. Let's take that, let's pull that in. There's going to be a lot of disaster relief. How do you guys fund that, right? With all the events. We have a lot of experience across the river, Big Sioux, a lot of those communities that were trickled down on there. There's a lot of funding out there that's bigger that are maybe getting a little forgotten here. How can we bring that to you guys? And the big thing is from our experience, from our understanding of the industry, eyes open, being involved in different organizations, and having those key contacts to pull as much as we can to you guys.
Ears on the ground, however you want to call it. You hear something might be coming from Colorado to South Dakota. Can you, as an engineer, if it's through Jeff or whatever, say, hey, I heard that maybe somebody's looking. Is that something you would do or can you do?
Like an economic development opportunity? Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And that would come in your bi-weekly meetings.
Yeah, if we're hearing it. And then I think just the other big thing when we're talking economic development is being part of the journey to understand the opportunities on the city infrastructure and what we can do to provide that, right? I think we've been in a lot of conversations on that where it's a no first approach just because they're asking for a lot of water or a lot of wastewater. So if there's one of those opportunities, if you guys are super passionate about making that happen in the community, what can we do? What are our options? Let's at least analyze it and observe it if we want to go down that route.
It becomes a twofold opportunity, right? Number one, we've got our ears to the ground and kind of looking and advocating for you, but also trying to proactively promote what you guys are doing, working with your economic development, working with SMGA and CCOG and everything like that to make sure that you're prepped and ready for when those opportunities come into play and that you're top of mind, right? That's part of our job to help you with that. Becomes a no-brainer.
Is up?
Time is up. Okay, appreciate the questions. Thank you guys again. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thanks for
very
coming in.
much.
I didn't mention it earlier, but I did bring a notepad up if anybody wants some scratch paper.
What?
I brought a notepad, so if anybody wants some scratch paper. Got to save that when I started. There's double sheets. Tyler, do you need something?
We need to shut that down. Yeah.
Anybody else want to look at either the ISG book or DGR book?
Just for that.
Just knowing that. DGR. And then Banner, and then JSA.
Jackie, could you hear them on the phone, on the TV screen?
Yeah, I've been listening. Yeah, I've been listening on the TV because it's louder than my phone. But it's kind of about like a 10-second delay, so you're kind of behind on the TV versus the phone.
I got a vision that's a little hard
Yeah.
too.
The mouse moving, but no voices have.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were gonna be too loud. I'm old.
Yeah, start at the top of the hour.
Mayor, I haven't seen you since the Super Bowl. Are you doing okay?
Yeah, they deserve to lose. If I played like that, I'd have walked home.
I thought about you all night. Oh, man.
You
she's gotta
did.
be just- She probably took the jersey off. This is going in the closet.
I didn't take the jersey off, but I thought they deserve to win. I don't even, there's just no way.
So Mayor Sandy, my 94-year-old, now 95-year-old grandmother, she's a diehard Chiefs fan. So from Kansas, lived there all of her life. And so the Super Bowl Sunday, and she turned 95 on Tuesday. And so
Oh,
I didn't call her till her birthday.
good choice.
I offered my condolences as well as a happy birthday and the card.
Say,
She chuckled. She was like, that was very hard to watch.
oh geez, it was embarrassing.
She's like, she has to make it long enough to see him get back and win.
Yeah,
She wants to
exactly.
go out with him being the champ.
Well, I said, you know, I knew they were gonna lose because that was just pathetic. I said, but you know what? Look at how many other teams did not make the Super Bowl.
Oh,
They made the Super Bowl,
Three
and there's
times.
next
They're
year.
a good team. That's a good team.
So,
With him at quarterback, they'll be in the mix every year probably. So.
oh, what was I waiting?
Halftime.
Did you watch?
Andy, I watched the whole. Andy Reid's special.
Isn't he?
He's special.
He's,
He's got, I mean, what he did for the Eagles back in the day.
Yes.
And what he done for the Chiefs. I mean, that man is.
when you look
He's
back
amazing.
at those Eagles teams
Yeah.
now because he has the credentials having won 3
Yeah.
Super Bowls, but then you're like, oh wow, he kind of dragged them
Yeah.
to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I didn't know the Eagles coach got started in Kansas City.
No, neither did I. Yeah.
That was neat.
Yeah, it was. So,
I like to watch the sports talk shows in the mornings. All the professional analysts that get on there and talk, and they actually break down the game, and it was like, wow, remarkable, the incredible defense of the Eagles. And the jokes of the offensive line of Kansas City never got on the plane, you know, like
yeah, yeah.
be
Yeah.
awesome all year and then not show up. Like, what happened?
Yeah, it was,
Mahomes has never had to
he did,
run like that.
he took a beating.
Yes.
Took
yes.
a
Are you guys
beating.
here? It makes you wonder, like, how much sports betting was taking place. My
You
God.
still wonder about that sometimes.
Oh, yeah. They throw games,
Yeah, you
The
can't,
whole
the
line.
whole line.
The whole line.
can't separate that
No,
possibility anymore.
no.
It's still against the league rules for them to engage in it, but they got family, friends.
Well, you got the Black Sox, so you know there's things that have happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been going on forever before it was legal.
Yes. You're right.
But they say there was $800,000 just spent at Royal Road, or not Royal,
Up here, Grand Falls?
Grand Falls. $800,000.
Wow.
Just on something with Super Bowl game.
Insane.
That one tiny little
The one
casino.
time little casino.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but Vegas.
I bet that halftime show sucking it did. I won.
I didn't even watch it. I was upstairs making food.
Hello?
Hello. Waiting for Jeff here.
They're gonna fill in, they're gonna fill the whole room up.
What's the best way to do this? Cut people on each side of here.
We have projector if you want to need that.
We don't have anything, just
Perfect.
we're up to.
Just a handout.
Yeah.
Good, how are you?
That's Chris.
Day out. Yeah, brisk. Brisk, it's brisk out.
Don't worry about mosquitoes today. Yeah, no bugs.
So we'll let you guys get started. Well, you wanna wait till 2 or are we ready to go, guys?
Ready to go.
If you're ready to go, we're ready to go. We just ask that you speak into the microphone.
You gotta turn that on.
They were gonna use it.
Oh, that's what that was.
Is the live feed still on? Or did you pause it?
No, the light feed's still on.
So great. Now they're gonna call the chiefs
How
and
about
tell them what we
them
said.
You're talking about Super Bowl party.
Oh, you thought I paused the light.
Sure I didn't. I said it.
I am not a Chiefs fan, if you can't tell.
So we'll have to each step up to the microphone to. Okay.
Yeah, we're doing a live feed, so.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
If you would, please.
Sounds good. We'll do some introductions of the team here. I'm Craig Lauritsen, project manager in the Sioux Falls office. Graduate of SDSU and a MBA from Colorado Tech. Been with DGR for about 7 years now. Live in Centerville, South Dakota, so kind of run back and forth through this area. Work in Northwest Iowa and Sioux Falls area.
Hi, I'm Miriam Martins. I've been with DGR for about 9 years now in the Water and Wastewater Department out in Rock Rapids, Iowa. I do mostly wastewater work. I actually graduated high school in Garrettson, South Dakota, and then moved to Georgia for 6 years. Got my engineering degree and master's degree at University of Georgia. But when my husband and I were kind of ready to settle down and start careers, got a job at DGR and moved back and just kind of by chance landed in Canton. We ended up buying the Hiltz old house out on North Bridge Street. And so we've been out there for 9 years now. Have 3 little girls, the oldest of which just started kindergarten this year, is wrestling. And so it's been kind of fun to really be more part of the community now through all that.
Almost feel like I don't need to introduce myself to most of you guys. Eric Stearns, been Canton born and bred for 34 years now. Started at DGR in 2014, so about 11 years. Graduated from South Dakota State University in 2013 with an ag engineering degree. My wife and kids live outside of town in the Canton School District. Our kids go to Canton here. We've got 3. We've got my oldest is in 4th grade. Number 2 is in 1st grade, and then the youngest is in my wife's preschool at the Methodist Church here in town. So yeah, I've been a part of Canton for a very long time, active member. So.
Oh, Trent Bruce with DGR. Obviously, I've been with DGR for about 25 years. Worked exclusively in the municipal, city engineering roles, private development associated with a lot of the small towns. After graduation from college, SDSU, I moved to Rock Rapids. So I was in Rock Rapids for 11 years and have been in the Sioux Falls office for the last 14, 15 years almost now, and do primarily small town engineering work, both on the public and private side. So well versed with all of our offices and Thought I would just transition into a little bit of background about DGR to give you guys a little bit of history and why we think we're best suited to provide city engineering services for the city of Canton. Bottom line is what we do. DGR was founded in 1952 in Rock Rapids, and we've been doing city engineering services for rural America, primarily in the tri-state area, Northwest Iowa, Southwest Minnesota, and Eastern South Dakota for about, ever since our beginnings. I started out with Rural Electric. Our two founders were both electrical engineers, and because of that, we got really busy into the rural electric work and do a lot of work for electric cooperatives. We also do a ton of work for municipal engineering services now as well on the electrical side of things, but that translated into municipal engineering services, and we now provide city engineering services for about 50 plus communities in the tri-state area, all within, or mostly within a couple hours here. We do have some West River clients that we've recently added. We opened up a Rapid City office recently, so we've added a few clients there that have asked us to be their city engineers. In addition to the city engineering services that we provide to all these communities, we work for a lot of communities that have their own city engineer, but we just supplement them with all of the city engineering type services, plan review, plat review, miscellaneous survey stuff. Can you find these property corners, things like that that come up from day to day on a city engineering needs perspective. And some of those that we work for regularly include like the city of Brandon, Huron, Pierre, Sioux Falls, Box Elder, now that we have that office out there. So we provide services to supplement their city engineering services as well. But yeah, we're thankful for the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we do and share some of our experiences and different things that we think would be beneficial to the city of Canton and why we should be considered for this opportunity. First of which is the fact that we used to provide city engineering services to the city of Canton. We did for many, many years. And as Myron transitioned to a new job, the city engineering services transitioned with him as well. And when that happened, we still worked with Myron and helped primarily on the water side of things. Eric and his team would provide some modeling and helping out with some of that stuff, but a lot of different things that we would help. And a lot of our staff has experience working with Canton from those early days and when we used to provide city engineering services there. So thanks again for allowing us to be here and provide some information about DGR and who we are, who we work for, and why we would be best fit to work with the city of Canton and how we operate. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to one of these guys, and they're going to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff we do and some examples of how we can help.
Craig again. I'll jump into some of our basics. We operate a lot different than other firms in the area. Myself, I'm maybe one of the older ones. I graduated from SDSU in 1994, so I've been around for a while. Worked for some other firms, also worked in the construction business a little bit as well, which gave me some other insights into things. But we operate more as a relationship-based company. We don't go out and chase the big jobs and pursue, hey, here's a big opportunity. We want to see our name on things, and we did this huge job. We like to work with partners, team with communities, be their long-term partner through projects, help them to find funding, figure out how to make their community grow and succeed. So we cover a lot of aspects. The positive of the company, working here for me, we're multiple disciplinary. So we've got, water, wastewater folks, survey, landscape, architecture, aviation, GIS. We kind of cover the full range of services. So as Trent mentioned, sometimes we'll be working with, partnering with other firms to help them, when they can't do a wastewater treatment plant, they'll ask us to help them. And we partner with a lot of other firms.
Miriam Martins again. I just kind of wanted to share a story to build off of what these guys have been saying about our relationship-based services and what we can provide for some of our clients. And it kind of goes back to the flood back in June of this year, which I'm sure kind of looms large in everyone's mind. It's kind of a big weight on where the city of Canton needs to go, I think, moving forward. It's a horrible experience. I think pretty unexpected for everyone, not predicted. It left a lot of people scrambling. I mean, citizens and city leaders alike. And as devastating as it was here in Canton, it was really catastrophic in Rock Valley. And so I think when the Rock River breached those levees, there was something like 80 water rescues. They ended up with 1,500 of their citizens kind of displaced out of their homes. And all in all, I think they ended up with 180 homes deemed uninhabitable. And so just like the city of Canton, in the weeks following the flood, everyone's just scrambling, trying to get rid of water, get things cleaned up, just figure out which way is up. But as the wheels of government started turning, the governor declared a state of emergency. They applied for FEMA funding, and particularly for Rock Valley, they needed this FEMA funding for temporary housing. They had 1,500 people that didn't have anywhere to go, living in churches. I think they had five families living in some single family homes. And so they needed to figure out what they were going to do with these people. And so we worked with the city of Rock Valley regularly. But about 3 weeks after the flood, on a Thursday, Department of Homeland Security kind of finally came through and said, okay, let's figure out what we're going to do for temporary housing and figure out some sites that would be suitable. And the city of Rock Valley, Department of Homeland Security, and the city asked us at DGR to be at that meeting too, to help represent them and to be part of their decision-making process as they moved through. And at that meeting, they kind of landed on 2 sites that would be suitable for temporary housing. I think it provided about 140 spots for essentially mobile homes, trailers to be set up. And it was there's a campground and what was an existing mobile home park, but both of which had been totally destroyed in the flood. So at the end of that meeting on Thursday, we had 2 sites selected, but both of those sites needed complete new utilities. So new electric, new water, new gravity sewer, lift stations, and one of the sites needed all new concrete paving. And so we had the sites, but we still kind of had a big hill to climb before we could move people in. And so at the end of that meeting, the city authorized DGR to start work and start doing basically whatever we needed to do to get those people moved in as fast as we could. So Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a bunch of different people at DGR were working kind of around the clock. So we had, our civil engineers working, we had people out doing survey work, we had water engineers working, wastewater, designing all the utilities, and not only just designing and kind of in our normal scope of engineering services, but we were also, we were lining up contractors to be on site. We were talking with suppliers to procure materials, working with controls integrators to see what kind of panels they could provide, sending trucks to Des Moines to pick up pumps, all kinds of things. It was just a whirlwind of activity. And by Monday morning, contractors were on site, materials were on site, work began at both of those sites. And for 2 weeks, basically around the clock, that work continued. DGR was on site every day. We were in constant contact with the city leaders and with FEMA, hand in hand trying to get this done. And at the end of July, 2 weeks later, the first trailers had arrived and were getting set up, and families were moving in. And so I think for everyone at DGR, that was a really rewarding project to be a part of. I think we were all honored that the city of Rock Valley kind of trusted us to help them through such a critical project and such a delicate time in the city. And So that was 17 inches of rain in about 24 hours. From what I heard, that's statistically about greater than a 10,000 year storm event. And I really hope that that's true. I never want to see that again. I'm sure you guys never want to see that again. Hopefully our children never see that again. But what do we do? Just kind of the normal run of the mill, say 100-year flood events, or even just kind of your peak 24-hour event that you see a couple times every summer. Well, the things that cause the biggest damage as far as flooding goes in these rain events are, surface water and groundwater from the rain entering structures, but also sewer backups from your sanitary sewer system. And I think that was one of the big problems that Canton faced during the flood. And so we work continuously with clients to keep inflow and infiltration out of the sewer system. I don't think there's any community that we work with that would say they don't have a problem with I&I. And it's just a constant battle against aging infrastructure. And so just things as simple as, sump pump ordinances, point of sale inspections, to smoke testing, televising, sewer lining, manhole rehab. There's a whole list of things that we've used in the past and have been successful with to try to keep that surface water, that groundwater out of your sewer system, try to mitigate some of the effects of at least sewer backups in these rain events. And in a similar way, kind of jumping back to Rock Valley, now that the dust is settled, we continue to work with them and look at like their wastewater treatment facility, for example. See, what things worked well during the flood, what things didn't work well. How can we maybe leverage FEMA mitigation money to fix the things that didn't work well, keep that sanitary sewer moving, and keep just everything moving through so that it's not backing up into basements. Similarly, Rock Valley now is kind of faced with this unique opportunity is not the right word, but probably like a unique set of circumstances where they can step back and now plan their community. They have this large swath of residential area that's uninhabitable. And so DGR has been working with them to look at, okay, now, we kind of are starting somewhat over. Where do we want our residential developments? How do we protect ourselves in the future? How does it look with our existing utilities? How do we proactively plan our communities? And that's something that Erica is going to talk to you guys a little bit more about too.
So like in every small community, development is always a hot topic. We're always wanting to see that growth, that development, and how the best do we get that done? Like Craig was saying, we love to work in relationships. We love to work as a partner with you to make sure that what you guys are looking for is what you get, right? And so we look at growth as a planned and a balanced approach. We really see Canton as a place that can be a regional hub for commerce. It can be a regional hub for that can support itself and not fully rely on jobs that need to go to Sioux Falls. We look at it as a place that we can see industrial and commercial and residential growth and really be able to support itself. And by the way we do that, we love to plan. We love to make sure that the plan is in place, that we have a plan that we can easily follow and continue to help, just help the community to prosper. For example, if you've got the industrial park on the west side of town, how do we look at that? If another industrial group wants to build a new business there, Canton's got the opportunity that we've already got a nice thoroughfare. We've got Highway 18 running through the middle of town that already provides a lot of traffic capabilities. But maybe in the industrial park, we need to look at streets. Well, we can do that with you. We can look at the streets. We can see if we need to improve those streets, widen those streets. If there's more truck traffic, we can look at those things. Miriam mentioned some of the modeling, and Craig mentioned some of the modeling that we do. We've had the opportunity and we've been blessed to be able to provide your guys' hydraulic model for many years. So we've already got a really good understanding of what your water system looks like. I think the last time we updated that was probably 2015. So there's probably some things we need to update there, but since we already have that, we can hit the ground running and really start to make quick decisions and be able to progress. Another thing we have done and developed recently with communities that I think kind of makes us unique is we've developed a way to model wastewater systems and wastewater infrastructure. For example, we developed a wastewater model for the city of Sanborn, Iowa, as they were looking at developing some additional industrial development in their community. We were able to look at the capacity of their existing system, look at how that existing system would handle additional growth, what capacity was still available, and then what would it take to add significant demand to that wastewater system. We're able to do that. We also have developed a lot of really strong relationships with area developers. There's the developers in Sioux Falls that everyone kind of looks at. It's either we have a project with them currently, or we're going to be doing a project with them in the future, or we've recently had a project with them. We have a lot of different relationships with them. And because of that, we're able to kind of get eyes on the cities that we work with. We've helped Salem and Crooks, Rock Valley, Del Rapids, just to kind of name a few that we've really been able to get some of those developers into town, but make sure that what those developers are looking to build is what Canton wants to see. Always the key is that whatever the community wants, we can make sure that those developers are looking for that. And if a developer wants to come to a community and they already are working with an engineer, we can then be there on the city side to make sure that what that engineer is proposing, what that developer is proposing, fits with what your infrastructure can handle, fits with what you have in your long-term plan. We also have really strong relationships with development organizations such as Governor's Office of Economic Development, Sioux Metro Growth Alliance, or even organizations like Teton Ridge with Steve Watson. We've got a strong relationship with all those groups as well. And that really helps us bring in those industrial and commercial developments that then can provide a job base for a community that can then turn around and fill and build residential developments and allow those all to work together to really be a self-sustaining community that doesn't have to rely on communities like Sioux Falls to provide all the jobs for the community. Also with that, if we get more residential growth, we bring in more commercial and industrial growth. And then one of the big things that I have always heard as a member of this community is that a focal point for this community has always been downtown revitalization and looking at how do we make, we've got this really just gorgeous frontage along Highway 18, lots of traffic. How do we grow that? How do we improve that? And because of those partnerships with those development organizations and with those developers, I think we're really well versed in getting those to get eyes here. We've got the local connections. We can help get those people here. And the community's already done a great job, whether that be through the beautification grants that I know, like my in-laws were able to receive a couple years ago. Just redeveloping the old Home Federal building into the Vault Business building. I think that's been fantastic. And we can help kind of spearhead those and be supportive of those efforts. Another thing that I think can help with that downtown area is I don't think anybody after another 2-year Highway 18 project ever wants to see Highway 18 get shut down again, right? So as that infrastructure downtown continues to age, what can we do to make sure that highway can stay open while still improving the infrastructure that's underground there? We've worked with contractors on methods called pipe bursting, where we're able to replace the pipeline that's in place while still keeping the street open. Like Miriam mentioned, sewer lining has been a great thing for us, where we can literally install a new pipe in place of the old sewer line without really making a big mess. Now, it's still going to make a mess. All construction makes a mess, but we can still keep that Highway 18 corridor open, that main corridor through town open, while making those improvements. So just some of those things like that can really help a community continue to operate while making improvements to the city. Another thing that I think is unique to us is that we have strong relationships with your regional partners, whether that be Southeastern Electric. We've worked with them for a really long time on the electrical side. We worked for a long time with South Lincoln Rural Water. We were actually the engineers that helped develop that system originally, and we've worked with them ever since. We've been working with South Lincoln to develop a regionalized wastewater system, and I think Canton would be an excellent key partner in all of that. And we've got kind of that regionalized viewpoint that I think really helps areas thrive. And I think the biggest thing is you get to share in resources, you get to share in operational resources, you get to share in mostly in costs. Because if we can all work together, we can keep those costs down and just kind of help everyone continue to grow. Now, all of this growth discussion, all this development discussion is exciting and fun, and we look forward to it, but it can also be scary because all of these things cost money, right? So I'm going to turn that over to Trent, and he can talk about the funding relationships that we've been able to develop that helped these communities grow and thrive and continue.
Thanks, yeah. It's great to have a plan and where you want to go, direction, CIPs, which, we obviously help do that. But in order to achieve all of those long-term goals, you got to find a way to fund it. And there's 3 ways to do that. One is to budget your projects, base your budget on projects, or base your projects on budget, or find that happy medium. And really it comes down to finding the happy medium that you're able to extend the citizens' dollars, the taxpayers' dollars as far as possible by way of finding unique funding relationships. And we've been able to do that. Like I said, working with as many communities as we do, we're able to work closely with a lot of those planning agencies and the other economic development folks to leverage a lot of those dollars. And it's kind of fun to see sometimes when, the state gives out grants and they give out 5 or 6 grants and 3 or 4 of those are our communities that we're working for, and seeing that we're finding ways to leverage some of that capital from the state into the local communities that we work with. And got a couple of examples of how we've been able to do that with a few communities, but one of which is a community nearby that had some SRF grant money, and they got a lot of grant money as part of their project. They were taking advantage of the COVID stuff. So they were 80+% grant, 20% loan, and all of that is all dependent upon a lot of factors that may not be consistent with the city of Canton. But long story short, as we get towards the end of the project, and their last project on a phased project came in quite a bit under budget. So they had some leftover money, but they essentially reconstructed the majority of their community. So trying to find a way to use the rest of this grant money and COVID money was important. And what we were able to do with that particular community was take some of that leftover money and leverage it to South Lincoln Rural Water to facilitate some of their SRF improvements, and then buy down the rates on their to their citizens so that their water rates would not be raised to South Lincoln Rural Water. And they were able to use their SRF funding and able to do that, and then flatten out their South Lincoln Rural Water rates for a period of years. So creative financing and finding ways to do things like that, I think, is something that we do really well. And the fact that we do work with so many entities and have so many relationships with funding sources and the rural development, SRF, Governor's Office of Economic Development, DOT, partnering with developers and EDA funding and stuff like that, just we think is going to provide a boon to your community. And like Eric said, we look at Canton and see a lot of opportunity, and I'm sure you guys do as well. But we think that you're ready to explode, and that there's a lot of great things that are going on here. Your great industrial base and the core commercial properties, and I have a really good personal friend that has a commercial business here in town, and it's like, you drive from Sioux Falls every day to come down to your business. Why do you do that? He says, it's just a great place to do business. I like it. Got a place right on Highway 18. So those are the types of things that I think are important to your community, and that we can help foster as a partner in being your engineer. One of the things that I talked about there is how we operate as a team and we're collaborative. But not only do we do that with other entities and partner with other engineering firms. And Eric kind of mentioned it. If there's another engineering firm that has something that they're bringing to town, we welcome that. We foster that. The communities that we work for, we're not the exclusive engineers in those communities. We're helping the cities represent their best interests, but there are other people that come in and do business and have projects, and we work with them to, how do we get to yes? What can we do to make this work? Well, have you thought about this? And this would be best for the city. Yep, we can compromise here. That works. Here's your standards. This is what we need to do. Here's the variance processes, whatever it is. But I think that those types of things are beneficial to the community as a whole, and how we operate. And furthermore, just the internal teams that we have, there's 4 of us here. Why? because that's how we operate when we're working with communities. It's not, while we have a primary point of contact, it's not always, one person doesn't do everything. We've got 180 employees, almost all of which are within a 2-hour radius of this location. And so we can leverage a lot of resources really quickly for lots of purposes. Most of them are within 30 minutes of here, to be honest. But that being said, if there's a specialty type of project or a specialty type of work, somebody in our office has probably done that type of work, and we can use them and leverage them. And that's why we operate that way. We take advantage of everybody's strengths within our office and make that work. And the other thing that it does is it allows us to utilize people more efficiently and effectively, which lowers your costs and keeps it affordable and extends our relationships. And that's what it all comes back to. Over the past 20 years, so very few communities have we lost doing work for, one of which was Canton when Myron left DGR. So we're excited to be back here in the room and talking about a future opportunity here. And another one is Canastota when they left and hired a local guy that recently moved back to the area. So those are two communities that we had previously provided engineering services to that we don't right now. But we've added a lot, and I think we've added a lot of our communities because of how we operate and the relationships that we build and the leverage that we're able to provide. And to do that, we got to operate efficiently and effectively and communicate closely as a partner to your staff and council, and we do that. Collectively, we attend probably 60 council meetings and or planning and economic development meetings a month as a team that works in the municipal sector, either providing the engineering services and showing up at meetings for the city or planning or whatever. And a lot of those communities we work with only have one a month, but there's a lot of other things that we do regularly to be involved in their community and contribute and be a partner to those. So yeah, the keys there are just teaming up with the financing and your staff and finding ways to make projects happen. Working collaboratively, both internally and externally, with you and others in the community that are stakeholders, and ultimately just building long-lasting relationships so that we can continue to serve your community and your citizens. I'm going to transition now to just talk a little bit about some of the foundational type of stuff and the things that, how do we get started? What's the first thing we do? We've done quite a bit of research on your community. Obviously, we know quite a bit as well, just from the relationships that we have and the partners that we have. Obviously, forming new partnerships even in the last month or two that with some folks that have vested interest in your community, and that's helped us learn a little bit more about that. But the first thing we would do is sit down and go through all those maps and update those as necessary and figure that all out so that we can hit the road running. Obviously, you just had a CIP. We'd focus on what that looks like and what, if anything, needs to be updated to push that forward. A lot of times they're in great shape. Sometimes, as councils change or whatever, some communities, every time a council changes, so does the CIP. And that's not real healthy either, but we can work with it. At least you have a plan and you push things forward. So that's some of the foundational stuff that we would do to get things started, and we would hit the ground running. We don't think that there's a large transition cost associated with having us on board. Proof of that is in the relationships that we have with the other communities. We would encourage you to reach out to any of them, ask them about us, why they like working with us, or what their challenges are working with us, and we think that the references that we have would be a great resource for you. Even those that we don't have listed, I encourage you to ask some of those and just see what type of things that they like about how we operate and how we can meet your needs as a city engineer. Turn back over to Craig or others if you got a few other things to talk about here.
Just kind of wrap up and summarize, some of the stuff that Trent was talking about. City engineering, it's what we do. That's kind of the focus at DGR, teaming with communities, working through their projects. I went through civil engineering. I'm kind of a generalist, jack of all trades, master of none. Worked with communities. That's been the focus of most of my career is city engineering services, whether it's industrial development, residential development, the day-to-day sewer, water, streets, services, working with property owners, business owners. Sometimes it's being the buffer between the city and businesses or residents. But that's kind of what we focus on. That's what we do. You know, we try to do Sioux Falls office predominantly what we do, and we bring in the specialists. Been working with City of Irene, kind of wrapping things up. Family Farm where I live is, you know, west of Centerville, pretty close to there. So that's kind of close to me. I know a lot of people in that area and working through a lot of their general stuff, sewer lining, different things, but got to a point where they needed a new water tower. We secured funding. And then I work with Rock Rapids water staff to get a water tower plan put together and treatment plant projects. And we try to communicate well with our clients. You know, we let them dictate how that works, whether it's with, you know, office staff, at what point they want commission, town board, you know, included on things, emails. We basically do whatever we need to do. But when we're working with a community, typically in our office, we run about 4 deep. We'll have several people that are kind of clued in and working on things all the time. As Trent mentioned, we usually have one main point of contact to eliminate some confusion. But usually there's multiple people that are up to speed and know what's going on in that community and where things are at. So if one of us is out of town at a conference, homesick, on vacation, whatever might come up, there's always somebody that's in the loop and can respond to a phone call, a question, an email, site visit, whatever it takes to kind of keep things rolling. So also Trent mentioned our references, bunch of them on there. Certainly ask you to reach out to some of them, see what they say, you know, the funding agencies, DANR, CCOG, any of those people you work with, you know, reach out to them to see what they think, see what they'll tell you. So I think with that, open it up to any questions you may have for us.
How many people do you have in your Sioux Falls and Rock Rapids offices?
Rock Rapids is at about 90?
100.
100, about 100 in Rock Rapids, and Sioux Falls are about 40.
41, yeah.
So a few, go ahead.
Would you ever see, we buy half our water today already from South Lincoln Rural Water. Would you ever see a conflict with representing us and South Lincoln as we consider options to do more and more business with South Lincoln?
No, we've got enough people involved. You know, we have those instances. A community I'm working with as kind of their primary contact. We also have land development people working in there, and they stay connected on that side. I stay representing the city so that we're focused on, you know, one of the guys is working on development for a developer. He's not involved in the city. You know, we can't kind of keep it separate. So we're protecting the city interests, and usually never have a problem. We had enough people to separate and isolate.
And I think that that's one of the things that maybe one of our strengths is the fact that we do have those relationships with others, and both on the rural electric side of things as well as rural water types of things. The amount of work that we do on the rural water side of things, and particularly in this area, we work for most of the rural water systems around here. It's important that we maintain those relationships and understand that, but I think being able to sit down and work closely actually provides a benefit to say, okay, this is what's going to work best, because ultimately we're all in it for the same thing, and that's what's in the customer's best interest. And while you might say that would be a rural water company, you're their customer as well, and so are your citizens. And so I think that we can leverage that, and we've done a really good job of it. And if we haven't, we wouldn't be able to continue to do those services, because majority of the communities we work for, Salem being one that's got their own municipal system, they're reliant on those rural water system contacts and coordination and agreements. And we work through those constantly. Just finalized one on Monday night with South Lincoln Water that incorporated that $215,000 buy down in rate. So, you know, something we can.
Sounds good, thank you. You have 2 engineers that live in town already. You wanna open up an office?
It's a common question. We'd get pretty thin if we had to do that. We could get rid of our office space. I like that idea, right? We get rid of our office space and reduce that capital cost.
Move into our handsome downtown.
Right. We'd love to. You know, one of the things that we do in some communities, and it's dependent upon specific communities, but when we got hired as the city engineer for winter, we agreed that we would work out of their city offices 2 days a month. So we have an engineer that travels down there. It's a 3-hour trip, but it is for most engineers because there's not a lot of work in that area. So we have an engineer that works out of the city of Winter's offices on a couple days a month out of that basis. There are other communities that we don't currently provide services to that have asked us if we would model that elsewhere. And we certainly can. It's just a matter of finding the right person to facilitate that. For your particular case, we would love to be able to help you if that was important. Laverne, Minnesota is another one where we have somebody that offices in there. They have a staff meeting once a week. And so that particular day, our city engineer sits in the office with them and operates as part of the city staff. It happens to be that one day a week that they're there every week, but it provides that closeness. They get to know them a lot better that way. And so it's not something we particularly force upon you or anything like that. And the other thing that I think is important to note about that is if we're here working with the city of Canton, but we're not working on city of Canton stuff, you don't get billed for that time if they're working on something else, but it just helps build those relationships. And I think that's what's important long-term to make that happen. So would we build an office in Canton? Probably not immediately, certainly not something that we would never say no to, but I think there's ways that we could help enhance our services to you at relatively low cost and build those relationships. So
Cool, thank you.
yeah.
Jackie, do you have anything?
Yeah, how do you make each town a priority with serving multiple communities?
We get asked that one a lot. We do a lot of work, but we have a lot of staff. So that's one of the reasons we operate 4 deep in communities. We want to make every community a priority, and we try to do that. And we've been successful in doing that. And the way we do that is just internal communication and collaboration and having that depth with every community. The other thing I think that you get from that is the fact that the challenges, the issues that other communities have are probably similar to your community. And so you gain a lot of efficiencies from us because we're working with similar things or similar grant applications or whatever in other places. And is there a point where you get to where 2 different communities are looking for the same grant, and yeah, you just put 2 different people working on them and walking them through that. But ultimately they're going to look very similar in the end, the grant applications. And one of the things that we see from time to time is when there's an industry that's coming to town and they're looking for a place to call home and they want 50 acres or whatever the case is, just like the other entities that are on here working with those, that they're working with more than one generally. And like I said, we got great relationships with those folks. And every community has its strength, and you just try to leverage all of those strengths. But same with rural electric. East River Electric is providing power to a lot of different places, and there might be 3 different locations that a new industry is looking to build. We might be working with 2 of those 3 communities, and they all have their strengths, and ultimately they're not going to decide based on what the engineers say. Ultimately it's going to be about what the community is presenting, but we work with you to present the best solutions and find ways to make that happen. And we think that we've been pretty effective in doing that in our other communities and work it to your advantage as opposed to a disadvantage.
Miriam, I got a question for you. As far as with wastewater, Canton being right along the Sioux River and borders Iowa, working with Danner, do you always communicating with Danner? You kind of know where they're at before you come into a project? And then my other question for whoever is, does anybody win when you deal with the railroad?
So easy answer to the second question is no. Railroad is notoriously difficult to work with, no matter what utility you're trying to install. First question, yeah, I mean, we're in regular contact with DANR, and we always try to, if we have a big project kind of looming, we're gonna run things by them on, stream discharge, what some different stream classifications are. We've actually already had some conversations with them regarding, possibly discharging into the Big Sioux, and with that being so close to the Iowa border, how the Iowa DNR might be affected, and if they need to be brought in, what that looks like. And they've been very easy for us to work with. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, when we had our flood, we hated being by the river, but 360 days out of the year, it can be a benefit, and me looking at this town to grow.
Absolutely. I mean, kind of the old adage is the solution to pollution is dilution. And so you guys are able to take advantage of that by discharging into the Big Sioux River. Your discharge limits are going to be much less stringent than communities that are stuck discharging into dry run streams, because they have basically end of pipe limits where you're taking advantage of the dilution from the Big Sioux. But again, when things flood, that's not fun. And as we work with some of these other communities after this flood event, usually we design for a 100-year flood. Well, now we're looking at those flood elevations, and we're like, do we go ahead and tack on another foot or two on top of those elevations just to make sure that we're protected when, these 100-year floods are happening every 10 years. So.
I'm gonna just tack onto that, but I think as Miriam referenced, we have a great relationship with the DNR, and we've recently redesigned 6 different wastewater treatment plants in South Dakota. We're just getting ready to do 2 new ones here. Actually looking to build a brand new one, a community that doesn't exist yet today, but it will here in about 5 years. So we got to work through that long drawn out process with the DNR, because it's in an area where you can't discharge to the alluvial system because it's going to pollute the groundwater. So we're figuring out where we can do that. Long story short is that gives us a lot of day-to-day contact with those people that make those decisions. We do the same thing in Iowa because of our work there in Iowa, especially Northwest Iowa. So we got a really good working relationship with both of those. And so when the Big Sioux River becomes a target for that discharge, we think that we're poised and maybe one step ahead on that, because we understand what your needs and concerns are.
You want to add to my second question on that? Is there any way to work with your?
Well, it's challenging, and it is for everybody, not just communities. It's for all of the rural utilities. I think the thing that puts us, again, one step ahead of others is we're also working with them on the electrical utilities all over the place, and they got to cross them above them, they got to cross them underneath them, and so we have long standing staff that essentially all they work on is permitting and working with those. Now, that doesn't make the whole process a whole lot easier, but you start to develop some relationships with the person on the other end of that email that never answers. Or, so you know that they're not going to answer, that they take Fridays off, or that you got to catch them at certain times. And again, not necessarily an answer to it, but it's probably more personal, and it allows for us to help foster some of those processes. Doesn't make it any less painful or expensive, but sometimes shortens the duration because we know what to expect. And I'm not saying DGR is special in that way, because we're not. Everybody deals with that just the same, but it's, I think that we've figured out how to handle that. There's some people you just know you got to contact first, right? Well, you want to do this? Well, let's get on the phone with the railroad. Hey, you want to do this? We got to get, this conversation started. WAPA, it takes forever. How do we, figure that out? So.
Any other questions? Jackie, do you have any other questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Okay.
Well, if that's it, we'd just like to thank you for the time, the opportunity to, provide a proposal and come down here and kind of give you our spiel. So we know it's a tough decision to work through this, but again, we appreciate the opportunity. If there's anything else we can do for you, any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. But again, call our references, check in with them. So really appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the potential opportunity to work for the city of Canton.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Take the cold with you when you. Take the cold with you when you.
Yeah, we'll try.
The sun's shining, it's the best day we've had all week.
Yeah.
You guys are working through some shell stuff. That's what we're just wrapping up down at the family farm by Centerville. So
Ah,
it's
Live
interesting.
demand for that.
What's that?
Live demand for it.
Yep. My wife's not 100% on board, but you gotta have a place to play with tractors. So have a good afternoon. Thank you.
I had it earlier. I wonder if it reset. I can go through that.
okay.
I think they do, they have a lock on them, or they used to be.
My feet were
You
freezing.
need this back.
I was turning that sucker up.
You want these back?
Feet were cold?
Yes, my feet were freezing.
Times.
I had the dog panting last night, and I had the house so hot, with logs on the fire, and the dog was sitting by the fire.
Now would you go? Like bring it.
No, like, hey, girl.
I
think I need to take it easy on the log. My cedar wants to go outside.
That's bad when they wanna go
They don't-
outside.
Yeah.
It's not cold.
I had no running water this morning.
They don't freeze in Canada. I get here, move here as soon as you could.
My brother had a water main break in Watertown this morning. Sent me a picture. What the hell is this? I said, that's a water main break. Water pumping out of the street out front.
Cold.
Unfortunately, that's what it likes to do, is when it's cold.
Yeah.
I've heard that a lot of things in Watertown are shallow because water table.
Water table's so high.
So.
Yeah.
Not, a lot of things aren't as deep as they would like them.
Correct. We had a sump basket and never once had water in the sump basket. But I tell you what, the folks around the lake, boy, helped throw many sandbags in my time just to do it again the next year. See you next year. Let's see, we take them from here to here, don't we?
It's like somebody said, it's nice to have a lake or a home along the lake, but you gotta be careful, because someday the lake can be in your home.
Oh, yeah, every spring.
What was their rate? They said it was.
There's, it's variable by the engineer,
Yeah.
Okay.
which is,
Well, sure.
that's the completely two different approaches to.
How you?
Page 5.
More important is how much they can get done in an hour.
So yeah, that was most of the team that they had.
You see, they're taking care of someone in Bison. Yeah, I was like, oh my, made it out the perfect.
Did you say they were building a sewer system that doesn't exist yet? Or
Yeah.
a sewer system for a town that doesn't exist?
Correct. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it said. My wheels are spinning.
Yeah.
Why am I trying to think?
Kyle's got a smirk on his face. No?
Something
Do you know
West
something,
River.
Kyle?
I know nothing.
I think it's something West River. But, you know, there's half a dozen towns that didn't exist a decade ago around Rapids. There's half a dozen towns around Rapids.
We've been
that
here.
exist-
Oh.
Technically didn't exist,
It's- Yeah.
you know, even Rapid Valley. I mean, there were all the people living there, but they
No,
weren't towns.
no, that's.
I bet if I had to bet
I
it's,
mean.
Nobody can say.
2025?
Something that's gonna accommodate base growth or something.
but it has my curiosity for sure.
Sure, I heard him say that and I thought.
Yeah, me too, I went,
There is some new town south of Deadwood, a master plan community. I can't think of the name of it right now.
No, up on the hill. Sorry, everything in Denver is.
On-
We went out there for Christmas and there's a area that's,
Oh, to the north?
no,
Ish,
it's,
north. This
south
one?
of Lee.
Okay.
South of Lee.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yep, we stayed in Airbnb and you come out of the area and there's this new, they mowed down all the trees. It's like
Yep. Yeah, that's the spot I'm
something
thinking.
pass.
Cedar Pass.
Is that it?
Powder pass.
Powder Pass?
I've been quoting a lot of houses up there.
have you really? There you go, guys, you figured it out.
Yeah. So is that it?
I think that is.
Could be. I mean, I get one a
read-
month.
I read
Okay.
Yeah, that's why.
About a year ago that they were-
Yeah.
I read about a year ago that the next step was sewer.
Okay.
And they had tried to do something for Lee or Deadwood, but you know, it doesn't matter how close you are if there's a mountain in the way,
That's right.
so.
Engineer was 6 minutes late. The train engineer was 6 minutes late.
It's when they were brushing the train by. I'm gonna ask you that train question.
It's quite a conversation starter up there and you're on the phone.
Oh, for sure.
And in a good way, actually. After you get through the initial annoyance.
I lived next to the 1880 train and a helicopter tour business for a year. So if it wasn't the 1880 train
It was
blowing their horn, it was, so yeah, constantly it was, sorry, just wait a minute, or 10. I'll keep you on the phone, we'll start again in a little bit.
Yeah.
Wastewater treatment.
And the helicopter business started at like 7:00 in the morning. That was my alarm clock for work.
It reminds me of that scene out of an old movie called My Cousin Benny.
Yep.
You know, he comes down there and he rings that bell at that front desk in the morning. That train come through at quarter to. Is that normal? No. The next morning it comes through earlier. Yesterday you told me that wasn't normal. It's not.
Oh, the Hilltown house.
It's supposed to come
At the end of
through.
at the end of Bridge Street. You know where the Ostrom lives here?
North end of Lems's?
Yep. There's those two houses. They're the east side.
One
used to be Den Hartog's. Den Hartog's is on the west.
She probably had water.
I think so.
Right at Linden Bridge, is that right?
Yeah, she's the red driver.
I don't get past that. There's some good consistency with the questions. Probably still not true.
Yep. Right here.
Yeah, I can hear something.
They're coming down, they're traversing the stumps here.
Nice.
Afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
So anyway, over here.
When you talk, you gotta talk up there.
Okay. But yeah, if you're wanting a projector, you can either use that computer or plug into the HDMI on your own.
Did you turn the heat up or down?
I can feel it.
Okay, could turn it up more.
You're sensitive to heat, aren't you?
Oh, it's work outside all day.
They warned me about turning my heater off before you come into the office. Like, oh, I'll ask you to turn that off. Yeah,
All right, so. It's in again. The guy.
Yeah.
Good.
I always use this desk, but
All right, if I actually put this onto the hard drive, that way if
absolutely.
it's too slow, it doesn't hitch up on us.
Municipal league conferences and such. Yes, sir.
Hi.
I'm Weston
Sandy Lundstrom.
Guys, to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm Weston Blazes.
Hi, how are you? We have the phone.
Jeff Tanner.
Weston
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Paul Herbert.
Weston Blazes.
Weston?
Weston, yeah.
Jeff Tanner, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. Weston Blazes.
Paul Herbert.
Good to meet you, Paul.
Yeah, Andrew, this
Yeah.
is asking for a key for a login.
Oh.
If not, I can grab my computer here.
Let's do your computer,
Yeah.
because I haven't gotten my Microsoft installed.
You came prepared. Hope you have a generator to go because this computer takes 2 power breaks, so.
Other than that, we should be good.
And it's got some fancy lights on it.
Yes, it does have some fancy.
That was actually like the COVID generation computers. So we had to start working from home. We needed machines with enough capacity to do some of that work from home. So just a general laptop, it couldn't run some of the software that we use for design.
It's good to say that laptop is better than my desk PC.
And it's a workout to carry around in the backpack, I'll tell you that.
Well, we're gonna try and make it with one plug in and, well, see what happens.
Next closest one is over here.
Yeah, it's like a gaming computer, they would call it.
That's literally what it is.
I think they might have been built in somebody's garage or basement. Because there's been some glitchy things that have come up with
Yeah.
the different computers, but they are quite the machine. I'll say that.
Custom made.
So did you say when we got started, we should make sure to talk to the microphone?
Yes,
Okay,
because we're live streaming.
perfect.
Well, this all loads up here. I had to introduce myself. Paul Kraft.
Paul Herbert.
Jeff Tanner.
Paul Kraft.
Hi, Paul, I'm Sandy Lundstrom. And I hide this pen from them when I go home. Collect pens. And half of them don't work anymore, they're so old.
My wife thinks
But
I
it won't let me
fly tense
talk.
because I come home with my shirt
Here,
pocket. So
have
I
an
got a whole
extra,
drawer
so your
full.
husband.
Oh, bless
Well,
his
just sit here.
heart. He's home with a broken hip.
Oh, no.
Love this gift.
The wife collects them, puts them in a plastic bag, and
Uh-huh.
then she donates them.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Fishing.
Sure,
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
so
Because otherwise you end up with a whole bunch that, you're not
Yeah.
gonna use them all.
we
So.
get about 2 or 3 bags.
Put it in the bin, I go in there, take a bunch of check.
And hopefully it'll go through the
Throw
laundry.
when he's not home,
Well,
because he can't.
I made that mistake.
Yeah, when you
It's
put them
because
right.
they don't
put 'em-
work.
yeah.
Well, they might,
All the
right,
time.
right,
You know,
that's
they're-
That's why we don't wash our clothes together. She doesn't trust me.
So that, I guess, will it be convenient for you to look at the screen, or we do have handouts too?
Well, we do have a screen back there,
Oh,
but then it won't pick
That
up.
screen when it dropped down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we do have handouts too that hover slides, if that would be easier depending on how you wanna.
We don't mind looking
Handouts
at our
and
back.
the camera will pick
Okay.
that up for the viewing audience.
Okay.
You need to look directly at the back of my head.
We're good, we're good.
Yeah. Ethereal experience.
All right, we're ready when you are then.
We're ready when you are.
Okay. Perfect. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to come here and talk to you today a little bit more about Banner Associates and how we can help the city of Canton engineer a better community. As we got ready for our presentation today, I know Paul and others have visited with Andrew and Kyle a little bit about, some of the needs that you see for your community. So we have, that understanding, but as we go through this, if you have any other questions or if you think of some other services that maybe we touch on that you want us to expand upon, please feel free to ask about it at any time, or hopefully we'll have some time at the end for some questions. Again, my name is Pat Carey. I've been with Banner Associates for 30 years. My current role is the department head of the Civil Municipal Department, and both of these guys are also in that same department. We have 19 engineers in our group, spread across primarily Brookings and Sioux Falls, but we have a couple other folks in offices, remote offices. But the primary role of our group is working with communities like yours, doing city engineering projects, planning, things like that.
I'm Paul Kraft for everybody here. I would be what we consider the client service manager. I'd be your contact person through Banner that you would work with for everything. A little bit of background I'll go into a little bit later here through the slides. But we've been with Banner for about 3 years, and prior to that, a little over 10 years over in Rapid City. With that.
And I'm Weston Blasius. I'll be the secondary point of contact. So be able to help assist Paul if need be. And if Paul's not available, I'll be a familiar face that the city can reach out to. I've been with Banner for 15 years. Been most of that in the civil department. Although I've worked in the water department, wastewater department, hydrology, hydraulics, structural. I'd say the last 5 to 7 years, more in the municipal realm. So working with communities, being that primary contact, serving as a city engineer in multiple communities.
So at Banner, we are experienced, dependable, and connected. This slide kind of gives a rundown in a little more detail of how we approach city engineering services, but kind of in general, our experience and background is working with communities like yours. We understand the processes and procedures that are needed to be followed and understand a lot of the challenges that you face. We can be your resource and partner in navigating cumbersome processes and be the city's advocate through a lot of those, either with agencies or helping with the public communication as well. And finally, we work with you on all phases of the project. And one of the things you'll probably hear more than once from us is communication. It's something that we think is very important and a piece that we've learned, is critical in projects and even dealing with the communities and working with city council. So that was, one of the very first things we would get squared away with you is what level of communication you're looking for and how often that would be so that we're all on the same page. We are a South Dakota corporation. Banner has 7 offices across the state. This slide shows where we're located. Our Sioux Falls office is just up the road off I-29 near Fleet Farm in Sioux Falls, if you're familiar with that. This map also identifies the 20 communities where we currently serve as the primary city engineer. And along with that, there's been a total of a little over 40 communities that we've worked with over the years on city engineering related projects. Overall, Banner is a company of 100 people, and currently our Sioux Falls office is our largest, so you have a large resource of people just up the road that touch all aspects of the departments that we'll visit about here in just a little bit. This graphic kind of represents how we approach city engineering, and I'll touch on a few of these just a little bit. Under on-call assistance, I mean, what we're saying there is that we're a phone call away. Here when you need us, but we don't typically structure ourselves as working on a force account or any type of retainer. You know, we basically work with you and for you when you need us. So we can either work on like a general engineering contract, or we work on specific project contracts, but in all cases, again, we focus on that communication up front. Make sure we understand what you're looking for, make sure you understand what our schedule is, what our fee is, so that there's no surprises down the road. Under professional support, that's where we, again, focus on meeting with city staff, involving the public, other stakeholders that may be involved, and provide support and recommendations along the way to help make you successful. Strategic communication is, again, I think a key application that we incorporate. That has a couple different meanings. One is, acting as a liaison between the city and your staff and public as well, and to create opportunities for public involvement and their participation to gain feedback from them along the way when it's necessary. The other piece of that can be like graphic or written communication. Like, let's say you have a big project coming up and you're going to need to make some adjustments to your utility rates. We can provide some resources that you can use to communicate with the public as to why that's important, why it's needed, and help them understand what's going on. In addition to that, we put a lot of emphasis into communication during construction. So there can be, again, bill stuffers or mailers or something like that that can be used to help keep the public informed about what's going on, so that, when people are informed, there's generally happier and less questions that you get, less times that your phone will ring. Under funding assistance, definitely not something we take on our own. We work with CCOG very closely. We understand you do as well, and work with your community to establish, what goals you're looking for, what opportunities there might be. We have a lot of experience in working with those planning districts, working with federal and state agencies. And again, in those 43 communities that we've worked in, almost every project has some form of funding. So we have a lot of knowledge to go back on and help come up with ideas and ways that we can assist there. And then asset management, that's simply utilizing the information that you currently have to help you plan and project work going forward, or maybe community needs and things like that going forward. This next slide identifies some of Banner's areas of expertise. These all reflect either departments or subgroups within our corporation. So we feel this is one of the differentiators for us, that we offer a lot of services under one roof. Some of these that we'll go through in a little more detail that we think are relevant for you are, again, our municipal engineering services, our construction management, drainage and hydraulics, environmental compliance, and our structural and architectural group. So overall, Banner is a large enough company to have experts in all these areas, but we're local enough to understand what's important to communities like Canton. In this one, we dive a little bit more into some of our specialized services. These are all essentially subgroups of those departments that we kind of just looked at. What we found is that, you know, offering these services in-house can provide a lot of value to our clients and you know, have a lot of benefit to us too. Over the years, you know, we didn't always offer all these and we had to go look for these services sometimes, but having them in-house is a benefit to us and a benefit to our clients. And again, some that we're going to focus on a little bit more later are the floodplain management, capital improvement planning, and the structural analysis and inspection.
Okay, Pat had, of course, introduced or talked about the specialized services. And in these specialized services are embedded in our various departments. So really the primary department that is utilized for city engineering is our municipal engineering department. And we've got 19 dedicated staff members to help provide that service to the community. A big part of our involvement in municipal engineering is that planning stage. So now our approach to planning is working with the planning district. And City of Canton, I understand, has a good relationship with CCOG, and they work through CCOG for their funding assistance, and we help assist with that. And we work with those individuals at CCOG as well with our communities. Now, you know, as part of planning, of course, you know, that funding part is one thing. The other part, you know, preparing that plan, whether it's a capital improvements plan, we've prepared capital improvements plan for other communities. And a lot of times that looks at the city's facilities, all of the city's facilities, buildings, whether it be the city have maintenance shop or other, you know, items that they have to manage. Now, going down another level, infrastructure improvement plans, we've prepared those for the city. And that would include generally streets and utilities, and down to a more specific plan or focus plan, like facility planning documents or preliminary engineering reports. And generally that's going to be used for funding. Generally those are the plans that get associated with applications that are requesting some funding to complete that work. Now, there's the planning part, and we can do the reports, we can do the plans, but really we want to emphasize the implementation of the plans. And so that's one thing that we try to work very closely with the city staff, commissioners, council, on creating that implementation plan. When is this work going to be completed, and how are we going to get it completed? We got to get the funding in place to do that, of course. And you know, with that implementation plan, I kind of see it as a blueprint, and that's a blueprint for the next council. I mean, they need to know what are the highest priorities that are in the community, and carry that plan out. On top of that, I would say generally we provide a lot of reconstruction services. So it's street and utility reconstruction services for communities. And in the recent past, you know, ARPA and other funding mechanisms have put a lot of dollars into some smaller communities. And we've been a part of that, helping assist those communities with going through that planning process, going into design, and then into construction. And for example, the city of Madison, we're city engineers for the city of Madison. We've completed 100 blocks of reconstruction work in the last 5 years in Madison. In Lake Preston, we've completed 60 blocks of reconstruction. And that's like 2/3 of the town of 1,000. So another example, Parker. So Parker's completed 22 blocks of reconstruction, and they'll be working on their next 15 blocks this upcoming summer. So with having that amount of staff, that dedicated 19 individuals, that's what allows us to complete those higher, large-scale projects. And then also one thing that we help cities with quite a bit is development review. And as their city engineer, look out for their best interest. So when there is a developer request, we can review that, check to make sure that it meets city standards, make sure that it meets regional and local standards. It's compliant with the ordinances. Of course, you have your own planning and zoning committee that does some of that work. But in some cases, it needs an engineer's review, and we can provide that.
these are just a few items that, we help municipalities with and some that we thought we'd want to highlight today.
On the development review, is that something you can also, on the structural analysis and inspection? I understand that probably more for existing structures, but can you also, a commercial building and they're short of us sending it off to like CodeWorks and Rapid, is that something?
Generally, my experience, maybe you want to take it.
So we do have licensed architects and licensed engineers that we have done those reviews in the past, ADA compliance, building code compliance, and then like you said, Andrew, the inspection of existing buildings if there's questions like that. But again, our structural group, does everything from design to some of those inspections as well.
Thank you. I think one of the things that's probably on the forefront of a lot of your thoughts is the flooding that happened last year. One of the things that Banners does excel at is our drainage and hydraulics. We got 3 dedicated people to do the very high end. Let's say we're doing FEMA work, for instance, having to revise maps. I happen to be one of those dedicated people as well that know a lot of the inner workings of how to deal with FEMA projects and things like that. The picture that you're actually seeing on that slide is the floodplain, the existing floodplain for the city of Canton. So some things that I kind of want to ask you here, let's see, Andrew, for instance, do you have a city floodplain administrator kind of set up?
We do not know.
Okay. So that's one thing too, is again, some of our experience with all the floodplains is because there's a floodplain in town, you're part of the National Floodplain Insurance Program, is making sure that you guys have the right regulations, right ordinances, also some of the right people in place to make sure that this gets managed correctly. The last thing you want to do is when FEMA comes at some point, kind of audit what's going on, is finding out you're going to get dinged and possibly the people that are in those floodplain areas might get hit with higher rates, for instance. There's also some proactive things that communities can do too, to basically lower those rates for communities. So as I kind of mentioned, the floodplain is always kind of the biggest one, takes a lot of dedication to map, figure out where all the water is going and things like that. Some of the other things too that we do is just drainage infrastructure analysis. For instance, when you do any street reconstruction, basically any project, you're always going to be looking at drainage at some point. Just because it's not on the floodplain doesn't mean you don't have flooding issues. And I think, earlier last year, that was a testament to, hey, it's not on the floodplain map, but there's areas in town that did have issues on there. So our goals obviously are to make sure that, we can either get the studies that you guys have done before or do new studies and then give you recommendations and make sure that here, this is the roadmap to solve some of these issues and have you guys in on the discussion to make sure that, hey, the wants, the needs, the funding, that trifecta of things come together. So that way, at the end of the day, we know that it's going to get solved to the best of our abilities. The other part too that I give credit to Ken is your drainage criteria and just in general having a pretty decent amount of engineering standards set in place. One thing, just as Weston pointed out too, is making sure that any new development, including city projects that we could potentially be doing for you, meet those standards and can review it and ensure that what you guys have intended for what is the path for Canton continues to be that way. Obviously, we want to make sure that you guys are getting what you guys have established up here. This is the minimum requirements that we want, making sure that you actually get it at the end of the day.
We've also got a transportation department. A lot of times this would be underneath the civil municipal umbrella. We've got a amount of staff that it made sense to break it out and have a transportation department. They work on a lot of DOT state projects, work with various communities throughout the state. And generally I would say their work is roadway design, more high traffic or high volume roadway design, but also structures as well. So culverts, bridges at waterway crossings. One couple ways that they've helped other municipalities that we serve is through street maintenance and generally surface maintenance programs. So it'd be slurry seal or chip seal is the most common. We do help the city of Hurley and the city of Colton with their slurry seal projects. How we've helped them, we've helped develop a phasing plan in coordination with their street superintendent, but develop that phasing plan for the next 5 to 10 years on how they're going to move through their surface treatment throughout the city. And then we prepare the plans for them, coordinate with the city of Sioux Falls. That gets incorporated into the Sioux Falls area bid. And then we can assist as well in agreement with the contractor. And then if necessary, do the coordination and inspection work. Now, we have had some feedback from some of the other communities we work with regarding chip seals. And they've had some concerns with the chip seals they've had in the past. Now, when they came to us with those concerns, part of that was, well, were we involved in that? Well, no, we're hiring, contractor X to just come in and do the chip seal work. So maybe a benefit if we put together some specs and plans, so that way they had something to bid off of and follow. And there was enough communities that kind of were having the same issues and wanted to do the same thing, that we created a multi-community chip seal project. And so that was created last year, would have been the first year that we had performed that. And this would be the second year, which we're already in the process right now of getting through, I guess, contracts and commitments of who wants to be part of the chip seal project. Communities that we've worked with and are working with, we've got Flandreau, Beersford, Viborg, Kimball, Aurora, and Lake Preston. I think the feedback that we had gotten from the last project is, yep, they were satisfied with the project. And I think that's because the contractor doing the work, they had a blueprint on what they needed to do. And they had a spec that they needed to follow, of course. And then we did provide some inspection for some of these communities, not all, but I do think that helps as well, especially maybe that initial community that's done by that contractor, because it is the same contractor doing all the work. And so we're able to be there to monitor that, identify if there's any issues up front. Some other things that our transportation department's worked on in communities, recreation trails, in general, a lot of projects that have DOT or other state funding that requires the contract documents to be in the state's format. And that the individuals in that group, they're used to putting together contract documents underneath of that DOT format. So for us, that helps, the communities we work with, because they can do that work fairly efficiently, and they know the process best.
So these next couple of slides, again, thank you to Andrew and Kyle for kind of talking to me, previously, and kind of, getting some of those wants and needs, from the city. One thing that kind of came up is, it's my understanding that for the most part, your guys' storage facilities for water, along with your treatment process for water and sanitary sewer, are in fairly good working condition, all said and told. One of some things that we can offer is how do we support you on them? Those big ends are taken care of. Is now the infrastructure modeling, just making sure that at the end of the day, you guys have sufficient fire flows, pressures, making sure that your existing and future water needs are met. So at some point, as Canton continues to grow, we're going to be looking at some point possibly needing to source water either from somewhere else, increasing reservoir capacities, or at some point when your water tower or any of those things need to get replaced, we are capable of handling that design for you guys as well. Other things too is obviously, that costs a certain amount of money to put all that stuff in there. We can certainly help you with rate studies, obviously get those numbers in front of you so you guys can make the best decision, what's the best interest for the city of Canton for those expenditures. And at the end of the day, it's with, those facilities in good working condition. Our role right now would be to just basically ensure that those existing facilities continue to be efficient and can basically last as long as they possibly can. Some things to note too, we do also, I don't have on the slide here, but we do work with a lot of rural water systems as well, like Lewis and Clark Web Water. So we do have a lot of experience in that as well. Moving along, just wastewater systems here, the same thing, your systems seem to be in pretty good order from my understanding. Again, we can help out with that infrastructure modeling, making sure as Canton grows that, sanitary sewer systems have enough capacity for you guys. So that way you can plan ahead of time that, hey, the sanitary sewer main needs to get expanded to whatever size, or hey, your lagoons need an expansion here in the next 20 years. Basically kind of forecast so that way you guys are ready when that additional growth happens in your town, and you're not sitting there waiting and then it's the cart before the horse kind of thing, a scenario that ends up happening. We do have extensive experience with lagoons and treatment, and if it gets to that point too, if you guys decide to at some point in the late future to go with a treatment plant, we do have experience also as well working with treatment plants as well and designing those things. Also, lift stations, very common around this area just to pump the sewage. Doesn't matter how big, how small, we have experience in all various sizes of lift stations, so we can certainly help you out with designing and getting those in place. And at the end of the day, like I said, is just making sure that your existing facilities, that they're basically continue to be maintained and they're working as efficiently as they can be, and just making sure that they can last as long as possible.
Regarding construction management, we don't specifically have a department for this. I mean, we have various jobs that, take place throughout the summer, but we do have a lot of dedicated staff, and here we're indicating 30 dedicated staff to construction management. And I think we feel as a company that we excel in this realm of construction management. And the reason that I can say that is we prioritize the construction phase of the project. Our approach to construction is, of course, communication, so that a couple of times, we'll say it a few more times throughout the presentation. But communication on site between our individual that's on site and back to our office as well, but communication to the contractor and with the city staff. So that way they're knowledgeable about what's going on the project. And the staff that we're sending to the project is qualified staff. I mean, like we're saying, we've got 30 dedicated staff. We've got a lot of resources to help that individual out on site. The other thing too, and this is some feedback that we have received, is we have individuals on site that can speak intelligently with the public works director, the utilities superintendent, so that way they're relaying the correct information to them. And we have people on staff and on the projects that can interpret the plans and specs as well. And our stance for construction observation is to keep the city's best interest in mind. So if there's something that's not being completed right, plans and specs aren't being followed, we're going to call out the contractor on it, and we're going to inform the city. And then on top of that, we're going to take a stance, and we're going to encourage that those plans and specs are followed. And that's the same thing too. That's the message that we're going to send to the city. We would like to see plans and specs followed. And so that's the team aspect, I think, of the construction management that we take with the projects. Now, I guess some other things that probably come from client feedback, but maybe separate our construction management approach from others, is we do focus on private utility coordination during the design phase of the project to help mitigate some of those issues that you have with conflicts, because it costs money during construction, and it kills a schedule when you run into utility conflict. I think pre-construction meetings with the contractor, and that's usually held widely. I mean, that's kind of industry standard to hold pre-construction meeting, but we've also incorporated the public into that pre-construction meeting. And that's usually held prior to the start of construction. And a big part of that is the contractors there, they can communicate to the residents how they're going to move about their work. And if there's questions, that resident has the contractor there, they can ask the contractor and get a response, instead of us trying to relay information for the contractor. I mean, we of course set the guidelines out there, the criteria that they need to follow, but the contractors, they're running their own schedule. We're not running that project. Some other items, frequent construction meetings to make sure that everybody's not understanding of where the project's at. Everybody's informed where the project's at. Everybody is satisfied with the work that's being performed. And then at the completion of the project or substantial completion, we'll do a punch list walkthrough with the city and with the contractor, prepare a list of any items that need to be corrected before final completion, and then complete that walkthrough final completion to ensure that those items have been completed. And then even taking it to the next step, set a calendar reminder for that warranty period. Whatever that warranty period might be, 1 year, 2 year warranty, set a calendar reminder on both city's calendar, Banner's calendar, contractor's calendar. And that's only to help ensure that warranty walkthrough is completed and that we identify any issues prior to that warranty period being up. So that way it can be communicated to the contractor and be addressed. Because if you paid for the warranty, you might as well make good on that payment. And I guess that's probably how I see us differentiating ourselves from others. We see the project through to completion, and that's our approach. This environmental compliance, this is something that probably gets overlooked. It doesn't get as much attention as it deserves. But environmental compliance is included on almost every project that we do in this industry, especially if it has federal or state funds. And Banner had seen a need for this to develop a group or find individuals that could assist us with environmental compliance and assist our clients with environmental compliance. And so this group that's been developed, it consists of individuals that come from the public sector that have worked in government agencies, and they've been on that end of administering the compliance side. And so they know the process and they know the requirements of what needs to be met for environmental aspects on projects. And our approach is to bring these individuals in during the during the planning phase. And at that stage, they're able to identify what compliance items need to be included in the project. And then throughout the design phase, make sure that it's incorporated into design. And then in construction, and more recently, I'd say, they've helped enforce that compliance, especially with the contractor. And a lot of that is just to protect the city from anything that would come out of non-compliance. Some other items I want to mention. We do have some specialized services included in this department with wetland delineation, preparing permitting applications, and then also doing the compliance inspections I was just alluding to.
Have you done any wetland bank design construction?
Design. Pat, you might know more than I do on that.
So I think the staff in their previous life had some experience with that. We haven't, as Banner hasn't necessarily been involved with developing banks, but we have been involved with wetland mitigation for some clients where they had to buy those credits. But again, Leslie, who's our department head, she has folks in that realm on speed dial that, for one particular developer, the process was lagging. We got her involved. She knew who to call, and within a matter of a couple of weeks, the credits were done and the project was moving forward again.
Thank you.
One thing that comes up on almost any project is obviously the land surveying. We need to, know where everything is before, we rip it up, replace it, that kind of thing. So some of the ways that, we can serve the city of Canton here, obviously, plat review, when you guys are doing new developments, somebody to go there, be basically a third viewer just to verify that, hey, the thing looks right, lot dimensions look correct, making sure the road is where the road should be, just verifying all those things. As part of any project that, we would do, we'd also do boundary survey, again, making sure that roads, people's property lines are in the place, so that way when you go into construction, you're not getting into an argument with a property owner saying that, hey, you are now 5 feet into my property, and you look back and, oh no, that's not right. Gotta, make sure that all that is correct. One of the other specialized services that we do is right-of-way services. What ultimately ends up happening, especially on like urban street reconstructions, you're trying to change a lot of things within a right-of-way. Sometimes you just don't have the room, and then the need for, either temporary easements just to go on somebody's property, regrade a little bit of grass, or sometimes you need full permanent easements. Say, you're putting in a sidewalk, and especially with ADA regulations, that pad is usually really flat, and if you're in a really hilly area, now all of a sudden this corner has, potentially a 4-foot, retaining wall that might go out there. Well, can we get a permanent easement to, put that on there? We do have dedicated staff that can go out, talk directly with those property owners, and basically just make sure that, what we have planned on here can actually be completed and get that one extra step done for any project. One of the things that we do pride ourselves on too is, with as technology, like with all these computers going on, it seems every 6 months there's a new thing going on. The biggest one that I think that's helped us in the survey industry is definitely the drone and photography technology. As you can see here, the picture that's actually shown, that actually is a project, is actually lagoons sitting over there. The nice thing about it is you have literally one guy that's a pilot, sits, throws your drone around there, flies it around, and can take millions and millions of points. Whereas if somebody would try to get that level of detail, you need dozens of surveyors going out there trying to hit the points. The nice part too is if you do miss something, you have photography that goes with it. So hey, if you missed a tree, for instance, you can go back to the photography, overlay your survey information. Oh, hey, get the tree, instead of somebody going there. We're all sometimes forget things. Surveyor could miss a valve or tree or something like that. We just go back to the picture, hit it, and now we got that point in our CAD file, for instance. So that's one thing we always continually try to be in the forefront of.
Have you ever done forestry surveys or like
for the types of trees using?
Typically, and it's never been like, yeah, we're going like, here's pine trees, here's maples. It's usually been, here's deciduous, that type of thing. I think maybe the environmental department, I think at the end could go if you needed to, map out, here's all the different species of trees. By all means, I am no expert on, what type of tree species, but we do have people on here that can certainly help with that type of service.
Our architectural and structural department, this is one of the specialized services that we had indicated. And really both of these services, generally, a lot of engineering companies don't have architects in-house or structural engineers in-house. So it's a great benefit to our company, of course, the communities we work with as well. So these services really complement our municipal engineering approach as far as our community facility planning. And what we're able to do is go review the existing conditions of the city's facilities, be able to identify improvements that would be necessary or desired by the city, and then provide budgetary numbers. And that's kind of the planning part of that. What is this going to cost? What's this plan going to cost? Now, in looking at remodels or renovations, a big part of this, whatever your plan is, as far as making an improvement, our structural engineer can, of course, identify whether there's going to be issues with structural integrity of that building by making an improvement. And then also with that, our architect, of course, is knowledgeable enough to know, is there going to be ADA compliance issues? And what do we need to do to meet that compliance? Also, are there going to be building code violations? And what would we need to do to make improvements to meet the current building code? Some ways we've helped communities regarding architectural and structural. We've worked on a renovation for the City of Beersford Library, completed a renovation for the Millbank City Office in Oklahoma, helped them replace the roof on their community building. And then in the picture here, we provide the design and construction on the T Police Department.
So these next couple of slides, I get to do what everybody likes to do, is talk about themselves. Why would I be your client service manager? So at the end of the day, what we call a client service manager is like I said, your point of contact. This is basically at the end of the day to make it consistent, so that way you always have one constant person, one number that you can call. I'll be taking care of all that. By all means, it doesn't mean that I'm going to do all the design, all the PMing and everything of that. Again, Banner has over 100 people working for it. My job is basically to see the big picture for everything and make sure that the right people are with you guys to make sure that, hey, are we taking care of environmental compliance? Do we have surveyors lined up? Hey, have we talked to private utilities on this? I'm basically your coordinator, your facilitator for everything. So here in this next slide, I'm going to do a little bit about my background on everything. So as I kind of mentioned previously, I've been with Banner for about 3 years. Before that, for about over a decade, I was over in the city of Rapid City. Worked for a small engineering firm where I was only one of 2 licensed engineers. And doing that, did a lot of private development, residential development. So got used to Rapid City's, basically all their design standards and all the things they want. The nice thing about being in Rapid City and what you guys have adopted, your engineering standards are very similar to that. So, I kind of looked through it, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And the nice part about it, again, as you guys continue to grow, you guys have things in place to make sure that things are kind of in order. So that way you're not looking at some of these other towns potentially where a new development comes in and we're starting from ground zero. We're like, hey, what do we need to do on this? You have steps in place. So that's actually a very good thing. That was on the private side. On the public side, though, did a lot of work for the city of Rapid City. Did over 4.5 miles of street reconstruction for them. That's where I kind of specialized in, was urban street reconstruction. So that was street, water, sewer, storm sewer, and also specialized a lot in the drainage analysis portion of that. That's where I also developed my skills too with the FEMA floodplain. Actually remapped a substantial amount of floodplain in for the city of Rapid City. So sometimes if you want to go there, you can probably see my name on some of the paperwork if somebody wants to have that boring part to do later. But yeah, had a lot of experience of that. But the reason for the change why I came to Banner is at the end of the day, being the army of one and knowing a little about a lot of things. You're always the army of one. Coming to Banner, it is having all these people that are experts in these areas that I can now call on and help out. And I think that's kind of the big differentiator of Banner, is having these experts in these fields where I don't have to be the person that knows 100% of the information. Is like, I just need to know ballpark, here's what this is, and then I will get the person that can tell you, here's all of the intricate things that you need to know. So again, my job here as a CSM would be the facilitator to get all these people in the room and just basically doing the coordination for everything. And again, do have a lot of experience, working with a lot of projects. So obviously, can give my 2 cents on my recommendations. After moving over to Sioux Falls and getting with Banner, I've become the CSM for Parker, South Dakota. As we mentioned previously, we just finished up about 22 blocks of full street reconstruction, basically sidewalk to sidewalk, ripped everything up. We're about to do about another 15 blocks here this year. So for a town of about 1,200 people, ripping up 30 some blocks, we've redone about a third of the town right now. So as part of that, it's a lot of coordination that needs to happen, obviously, and being in a small town, making sure the public's on board with it, making sure council members are on board, city admin, finance officer, everybody's on board with what's going on, and making sure that we're all consistent about everything. And for ripping up 22 blocks, it went very smoothly. It's like things came in within budget, very minimal complaints. It was minor things. We're like, hey, can we regrade some more some grass, things like that. Now like we're fundamentally changing reconstruction projects or things like that. So that's kind of my background of why I'm here in front of you and would be your client service manager for this.
And Parker, the first time we got into it, tell us a little bit more about how you did meet with the public, if you did a public pre-construction or even design open house.
My thought is basically give as much information out in a whole bunch of different ways, so that way kind of no matter what, there's some form of information going out to somebody. So on the onset of the project, when we started surveying, I sent a surveyor letter out to all the property owners saying that, hey, let you know that this project's gonna go on. It's slated, to be constructed, in 2023, for instance, and just let you know, hey, we're gonna be working on something. So it kind of primed the gears for everything. After that, once we get further into the design side of it, once after working with the city and kind of seeing, hey, ultimately this is what they want, and everybody's kind of happy with the conceptual design, and then it's going to that next step of, okay, let's do a public meeting. So sending out another letter to everybody, advertising on Facebook, the city's website, things like that, to get public involvement, have basically a public meeting where people that are affected by the construction can come in, they can look at the plans, talk to me, other engineers as well, and go basically right in front of their house and then show them, hey, we're redoing part of your driveway here. We plan to be 5 feet away from this tree, and get them on board of, hey, what to expect during construction. The biggest thing that ends up coming up with property owners is, how do you deal with construction around you? It's what do we do about my trash can? Is my water going to get turned off? Things like that. Those always need to get communicated, and sometimes they fall through the cracks. I try to make it always a point to, I have dedicated slides that actually, when I do that presentation here, this is what to expect on that. And again, getting that in front of, whoever I'm working with at the city, making sure, hey, is this how you guys want to handle this policy? Is this your policy? Let's go with that, and making sure that, at the end of the day, that things go as smooth as possible. And the big thing is also being consistent.
Did they finance that with SRF, and was that a big jump in water and sewer?
It was dual ARPA and SRF through it. So there was a grant portion of that. But just as you know, the last 4 years, prices have just skyrocketed for things. So we did actually end up having to go back and get additional funding for this next phase. Thankfully for Parker, they are about to pay off a different SRF loan, which is basically going to kind of offset what they're about to take on. So timing wise, they kind of figured out the best way to kind of hit when all these things come online, offline. So that way their citizens aren't hit with a huge jump on things. Given, yes, it is an increase, but at the end of the day too, is there's a lot of aging infrastructure, and the amount of maintenance and money that goes into that, that's what kind of outweighed that, hey, we need to push forward with this. And thankfully, I will give it to their city council and everybody in the city, as they did a pretty good job of trying to do the PR and of making sure citizens were on board with all that.
Do you do rate analysis for water and sewer?
Yep. So yeah, part of our facility plans, we would end up figuring out, estimate how much the construction is, and then do the allocations for how much those rates would potentially go up, and then obviously give you some proportion of, hey, if you were eligible for some grants, hey, maybe this is what the rate is, or if it was all loan at this percentage rate, this is what you would end up expecting.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that Banner does that I think all of our employees appreciate is our leadership really prioritizes meeting with our clients to gain feedback. Admittedly, while most of it's good, we also find ways and areas that we can make improvements. And so at Banner, one of our core values is having a culture of improvement. So we continually look for ways that we can get better by meeting with our clients and listening to feedback. And this little graphic is on the handout that we gave you as well. But one thing that I wanted to touch on was the comment here about, I like how Banner incorporates our team throughout the design process and incorporates our feedback when they can. And so what that means, it's kind of one of our standard processes that when we put together a design contract for any kind of project, we set milestones typically at 30%, 60%, 90%, where we meet with city staff and maybe anybody else, city commission, whoever else you determine would be part of that discussion. And, that serves primarily two purposes for us. One is we know those milestones are there, so it helps keep us on schedule and on track. But two, it also helps us make sure that throughout the process, we're designing the project that you want. And we don't get so far down the road and realize that we're going in one direction and you were thinking a different direction. And now we have to go back and start over. And we're trying to be proactive about that from the beginning to make sure that we're all on the same page.
We talked about our approach at the beginning. This just is a recap of our approach to our city engineering services. And we rely on our past experience with the other communities that we've worked with. Like Pat was just talking, we've implemented a client feedback program. And from that client feedback program, we get feedback that we want to implement into our processes and, follow up client visits. We asked that question, was that issue corrected? And we review that and ensure that we're correcting whatever issue had come up on that specific project or whatever it might have been. But with that client feedback has really molded our company. It's molded how we do business. It's molded how we've operated. And then, as far as our approach, we utilize the knowledge that we have on local, state, federal standards. And we talked about the specialized services that we can provide. And the reason we have those specialized services is because we have individuals that excel in those areas of engineering. And they're highly trained and knowledgeable in those areas. And that's a great benefit to our company, of course, but it's a benefit to our clients that we serve as well. And one big part to our approach, and probably the element I think our success, is our communication. Our communication, we normally discuss this up front with the community on how much communication do you want us to have with your city staff, with your commission, what level of communication are you expecting? And when we want to match that. Every community has a few different needs than the other. And that's what we want to do, is work with the community, match your level of expectations, because at the end of the day, we're here to serve our client. We're here to serve our client, and we're here to try to advance whatever initiatives the city has, advance those forward, and try to help the community, in this case, help the community of Canton reach their goals.
With that kind of ends our little presentation here, to open up to any questions you guys might have for us or anything you guys want to discuss in particular.
Questions?
Forgive me here, because hopefully I'm on. I have a few questions, hopefully for the good of the collective here. One is, can you kind of delineate between, you talked about the on-call nature of your services versus the force account versus the general engineering? You had mentioned or referenced the fact that you don't really do a force account, it's more general engineering is how I took that. Can you explain that?
Sure. So I guess what I'm getting at there is, we've heard some feedback from other communities that maybe there's other approaches where there's a force account where they're saying, we want a $20,000 fee from the city of Canton and we'll do X, Y, Z through the year. Or there's a retainer where, it's a $25,000 fee and we're just gonna work off of that. And when we run out, we're gonna come back and ask for more. And so our approach is more like, not expecting to get paid in advance. It's more like as you need us, we'll communicate with you and again, let you know what things are going to cost, but work on things that way so that you're not paying us for something we're not gonna do.
But you'll help us build a budget number for year to year.
Correct.
As we know how many plat reviews, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Weston, again, in his work with Madison, I think that would be a great template to kind of understand. And plus you kind of know what you've seen from year to year. And so with that information, we can definitely help establish a budget.
And one follow-up question, Mayor. And that is, and you're probably not gonna want to answer this question or like this question necessarily, but there's a number of engineering firms, not all of them obviously, but that are, diversified, right? In terms of what their capabilities are. And you're obviously one of them. So, but I'm gonna ask you, of all the things that you do that are laid out there, and I know you mentioned construction management as being a major strength. If you had to pick one of them from the group that you went through, what would you say is your bedrock?
Sure. I mean, I think, again, as far as Canton is concerned, I think it is our municipal engineering experience, just the sheer number of staff that we have, both within our company and, 30 miles up the road. And then on that the construction management aspect of it, Weston mentioned the 30 staff, but what that really means is those 30 staff are our staff engineers, our project engineers. They're the people that are working on the design. So they're very knowledgeable on the projects and the background that they have. So again, for example, what we really try to do is have a member of our design team actually be out on construction as much as we can so that we have a continuity and a consistency in how we approach that. So did that answer your question or is there more?
Well, it's kind of, sure, it does. It does. If I was to say water or wastewater.
Yeah.
Right. Handle it that way.
Sure. And again, maybe this is being biased a bit, but Paul touched on it a little bit. Like our water group, there's a half dozen or more rural water systems that they work with directly. Our wastewater group just got done designing a new wastewater treatment plant for the city of Aberdeen. Our structural group does hundreds of bridge inspections every year. So again, with the number of employees that we have and the departments that we have, the negative side of that is it can sound like, geez, you guys are so busy, how can you do any more? But because of the way that we're structured and the way that our departments are structured, we do have that ability that, yes, we're the lead engineer for Lewis and Clark, and that's a huge project, but I haven't charged hardly any time to that job ever, just because there's other people that work on that at Banner and we can focus on our areas of expertise.
Have you done any recent or past smaller wastewater treatment facilities?
Sure. That's actually something I was thinking about for Canton and honestly don't know for sure, but in the communities of Aurora, the community of Beersford, the community of Viborg, they all have detention pond type treatment systems. They are discharging systems though, and I think that's the key component, but the state DANR has been working with all those communities on upgrading and reissuing their permit. And because of the effluent limits, currently Beersford, we're putting in a Sager system, Parkston a Sager system, Alcester we're working on wastewater plant upgrades. Viborg, we're doing a study currently with the presumption that they're gonna need a Sager system. And then Aurora the same way, an aeration system in their ponds. And so basically what that means is, instead of having to convert your community to a full mechanical wastewater treatment plant, we could hopefully look at an option like a SAGR, which is a submerged aeration growth reactor. A little bit out of my league, but essentially it's a blower process that helps break down those nutrients and be able to still keep the footprint of the facility that you have, but meet the new guidelines that the state's eventually going to put out for everybody.
So Sager somehow merges with the lagoon system?
Yep, so like in the case of Beersford, they have their primary wastewater pond, and then the water from that goes through this aeration system, and then goes out to their secondary, and essentially knocks those nutrients out to the level that just sitting in the pond and sedimentation can't, but they can still discharge into the same stream that they've always been discharging to.
Thank you.
So if you are already an aerated system, you can work with that?
Yes, for sure. Any other questions? I'm sure you've had a long afternoon already in listening to.
I have one. How do you make sure with having multiple towns that you serve that our town is a priority?
Great question. So the way we do that is kind of just what we're talking about today. We very deliberately, plan out who is going to be a primary contact for a community. And our target is about 2 to 5 per person, so that there's not, one person that has 10 and they're trying to balance all of that. There's 2 advantages in that for us. Is one, it gives our employees responsibility and some opportunity for growth. But 2, it also, makes sure that doesn't get bottlenecked somewhere, and we can provide the level of service that people expect.
And I guess one thing to kind of expound on that too, on my end, yes, I do work in a lot of communities right now, but the goal is obviously, if you guys were to move forward and select Banner for this position, is that, we do have a lot of other engineers where I can transition some of those other communities that I'm kind of working with, where I'm not the CSM for, basically dedicated between you and Parker is what we're looking at right now.
Okay. And Weston, you would be a secondary point of contact for us then?
Yeah, I'd be secondary if there was assistance that Paula needed. Yep.
Are you primary somewhere?
Yes, I am primary for other communities.
Okay, where are you primary?
City engineer for Madison, for Hurley, for Kimball, Oklahoma, and Colton.
Okay.
Any other question? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for the time.
Appreciate your time. And the good questions. Appreciate that too.
Yeah.
You got anything, Paul? You got it.
That's a good coat on. There's good points. Maybe I'll wrap mine around my feet. Cold.
Must be warmer over here.
I've been getting hot and cold the whole time.
It wasn't really a while.
After we turned up the heaters, the furnaces, I mean,
But it got cold again then.
quickly.
Oh, I can only imagine an 1800 building.
Yeah. God, you'd think that when they put it in,
Well,
they
you know what I mean?
insulated it a little bit.
I'd like to have a visit with the fellow that just happened to have this building.
Only we had a
Yeah.
structural engineer.
Yeah, structural engineer would have known.
Where's the wood burner to keep this thing warm?
Yeah, right.
I'm sure there originally was one. What happened to it? What happened to it?
It was too efficient.
Oh, insurance companies don't like said things.
So you have a fireplace?
I sure do.
I do.
It's going right now.
That's a commitment. Keep
I have a fireplace, but I don't use it very often because
I love it.
You've got
Dennis is old, he's not
But
gonna cut down trees
I'm a
anymore.
free care
You
provider.
see all the wood.
Oh,
okay.
I have an abundance of
trees and
wood.
everything.
Yeah.
A ready source.
Yeah.
Nice.
You mean if I went over
But
there,
it's my
and stuck
cheapest.
a wheelbarrow over there sometime, you wouldn't miss any of it?
You look at yourself.
Drive out my-
Why can't I fix that?
Exactly.
Take care. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
South Dakota, they won't let you guys have them.
Have you seen that solar farm out by Box Elder? It's huge.
Maybe.
You can see it on the interstate, cause I was like, what is that?
To the south?
Yeah, that's all solar.
That's
panels.
all solar panels? This last couple times I was driving.
I had to look it
What
up.
did the guy say things that we can't have up here?
He said that
Like the solar panel?
South Dakota will not allow it. And I was like, seriously? He goes, yeah, we gotta get it through your legislation.
I wonder what's up with that.
And he went to school here.
We're the sunniest state in America.
We used to be named the Sunshine State.
Right.
Damn right. Florida stole it from us.
Florida stole it.
They did.
We
So
had
what's this about? Solar panels are not allowed here?
A particular solar panel that the company that he works for cannot operate in South Dakota.
What company does he work for?
You have to ask him. I mean, this is the time of year to get stuff changed.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Time's ticking. All almost at the same time. Because they started talking about it. I feel all of a sudden, I'm like, what?
I know, it's not good. No, exactly. It was.
Turn the damper down. And let it rumble. I've never had any issues with it. Sometimes when I get a southerly wind, it's like the wind out of the south, it'll backdraft. Crack one. And then it runs back up. It's so interesting.
Hi, guys.
Good afternoon.
I don't mind it either.
She works in 12 months and they're
That's like all my clothes going. Yeah. You have a presentation you want?
We do.
Look up, over here.
Oh, let's see. Oh, there it is. All right. That's easy enough.
Oh, okay. We walk on the whole house right there. Me and him woke up and it was our little bed because we used to be downstairs.
Wow.
The whole living room.
The whole living room? Crazy. Yeah.
I've never had a backdraft in my fireplace.
No, because
Never had it for 40 years. I've never had a backdraft. Only time the house got a little smoky is when one of the girls didn't open the door. Oh, yeah, that, what are you doing?
So.
It clears out really fast. when I open it, so.
So we used to eat out on the farm. We used to be out there. They used to have pictures. They had fireplaces.
When my general-
Chris, there was somebody out there trying to get into your truck, but I think it was your daughter. Looked like it anyway.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't.
Right, maybe I'm walking home.
I do too. I do too. All shops. So, there you go.
That'd be a new concept.
There's only really a wood.
So, let's see.
That would be, that's it. So, these are some high ceilings.
Well, ready to go for another one?
Yep, and the only thing we ask is that if you're talking to the microphone, because we are live streaming,
Oh, okay.
okay?
You'll just turn around, watch the screen and, okay. All right here. Well, first off, I just wanted to thank everybody for inviting us here today. We are honored to be able to share more information about JSA and why we'd like to continue to be the city engineer for Canton. So I'm going to turn this on here first.
About to run the box. Getting it?
You're still not going to work.
Here.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Just a few main, bullet points of what we'll be talking about. Who and why JSA. Some of the team members, a few of the team members I did bring with me. I'll introduce them here quick. I've got Devin Clay in the back. He's an engineer with JSA. You may have seen him around town on various projects. Next to him is Tim Van Vugt. He's a engineering technician. He's been with JSA for 20 years already. So I'll talk a little bit more about them here as we move through. And then I've got Delron Peters with HDR. Over the years, I've done numerous projects with Delron, and we will continue to partner with HDR and Delron as we need to moving forward.
Did I skip that?
No, you're fine. So some quick history of JSA. We were founded back in '84 by a couple of Vietnam vets. We mainly serve municipal and the private sector. 90% of my work is done on the municipal side. Small communities in the area. I've got quite a bit of history with small communities in the area, but right now, majority of my time is obviously the city of Canton, Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County. Private sector, we do quite a bit of work with Lloyd Companies and Van Buskirk. We've done some and miscellaneous other developers in the area. We really do at JSA, the value of teamwork and respecting our employees and the clients. Our employees have a real keen understanding of the hour and time that they put into a project is costing our clients money. So they are efficient with their time, and in doing so, they're efficient with the time and they do good work. So that leads to the overall success of our company over the last 40 years. So why JSA? Mainly 4 or 5 really good reasons why JSA should remain the city engineer for Canton. Myself, I've been your primary representative. I've got 25 years of experience just with Canton, 30 years of engineering experience overall. And that leads to an unmatched local knowledge of the community. With all of our past projects and workings with the people and projects here, I don't think any other firm can really compete as far as the knowledge of the city. That also has led into the working relationships we have with the administrative staff, maintenance staff, and also citizens of the community as well, and some of the citizen groups. We've helped the city of Canton secure millions in grant funds for various projects over the years, and even more in low interest loans. And again, our partnership with HDR really leads to there's no engineering problem or engineering opportunity that we cannot provide to the city. You know most of this about me already. I'll be your primary representative for the city. I am both engineer and a licensed land surveyor. Quick side tangent, there's about 5,100 engineers who are licensed to practice in South Dakota, and 30 of those are dual registered as land surveyors, and I'm happy to be one of those. And we also have our actually president of the company is also a dual registered. And I think we really do find that goes hand in hand, those two disciplines. I'm the certified floodplain manager, and again, over 30 years of experience in the engineering industry. A couple of personal side notes. I'm originally from Yankton. I am the youngest of 11 kids, and some of them are, a lot of them are around the country now, but I'm a graduate of South Dakota State. My wife of 27 years grew up on a dairy farm north of Parker. We've got 5 kids, ranging from a 7th grader at Memorial and in Sioux Falls up to a medical student down at USD. So that's me. These are some of the towns that I've had the privilege of working in over the years. Obviously not all at this point, but in my past 30 years of experience has led me mainly into the core area, southeast South Dakota, working with a wide array of clients and municipalities in the area.
What other towns are you or JSA the engineer for?
Right now, just the city of Canton. Okay. Correct. Other staff members that do work here, that do work here for the city of Canton. Nate, again, he's a dual registrant, but 99.9% of his work is on the surveying side. He is, most recently, he's done some work on Northwest Street, setting the boundary and doing some legal work on that for that project. He's basically in charge of all of our surveying work at JSA, and again, another Jackrabbit alumni. Devin, as I mentioned, you've seen him around. We hired him right out of school. We've seen a pattern here, another Jackrabbit alumnus. 13 years of experience overall, 10 years. He's worked on many of these projects I show there. He's project manager. He's doing a lot of the heavy design work on Northwest Street right now. And he also gets heavily involved in the construction administration of various projects here in Canton. Tim, as I mentioned, he's got 20 years of experience. He's a kind of the odd one. He's from Southeast Tech. So right out of Sioux Falls, and again, got him out of school, 20 years in the engineering tech field. Really efficient in CAD, and given that experience, he's a good designer as well. So again, efficient and really cognizant of the time that, his time is costing his clients money, and is efficient and does the job right the first time. So the teams we've been fortunate to be involved with over the years with Canton, and will continue to do so, with HDR and Delron. We've done a number of projects here in Canton together, mainly on either the wastewater side or wastewater treatment side, water and the water resource side. We've worked with maintain the city's hydraulic model for the water system. So, if we need to make large improvements to the water system, we would, DGR is usually who we contact as they kind of maintain that model, and it's more efficient for them to make some changes and run some scenarios for us. KMS is a small structural engineering firm in Sioux Falls, and we've had them involved here in Canton a couple, 2-3 times, mainly when there's some structural integrity issues on buildings. So we've had them look at the fire department, the fire station before on that south wall, and miscellaneous other buildings within the community. These next few slides mainly just indicating, how much, we really do know Canton, and how that leads to, a better product in the end. Obviously, we've maintained all the base map information for the city, and we are, with an upcoming project, going to take that to a GIS system, so that information, the sewer, the water, storm sewer, will all be on a GIS base, so you can access that information from any device. We'll need to have some discussions moving forward as how much of that information do you want public, and how much do you just want to maintain that information in-house. Few projects that we've been involved with over the years. Just one that I wanted to point out on here is the wastewater treatment facility. This is when the new blower building out at the treatment facility. You can kind of see they're starting to build the aerated ponds out there. Another project that I found interesting was the community sidewalk improvements. 4, 5, 6 years ago, the city asked us to do like a third of the town every year, line up a contractor, fixing, basically fixing the sidewalk, your trip hazard, broken sidewalks, but also making, ADA accessible improvements at the intersecting corners. A few more projects. One I want to point out here, with the picture, this is Bartlett Street a few years ago, where we made an interconnect with South Lincoln Rural Water. We did that 3 blocks with using the horizontal directional drilling method of construction. Doing the directional drilling in an established residential neighborhood with all the services, can be difficult. You've got all those existing service lines. Some you don't know where they're at, especially on the sanitary side, water. So it takes a lot of pre-planning for a successful directional drill in this, in this type of setting. And then obviously, excuse me. And then during construction, you're having a contractor, a lot of potholes, a lot of digging, exploratory digging, so they don't end up mooring right through a service and not know about it. Another project that we were involved in, US Highway 18 from Cedar Street out to the Iowa line. On the DOT, we worked with the DOT on the highway side, and then all the utilities was a city contract. This one was, I want to kind of point out here, this is, remember back in 14, this upper picture is just downstream of the Christmas Lake Dam. In 14, when the water came over the emergency spillway at that time, it scoured out 10, 12 feet deep just on the south side of the dam. Took out the city sanitary in there and a portion of some storm sewer. Worked fairly quickly again to get the sanitary replaced in there and operational, and then put plans together to, on the bottom is kind of under construction where we filled in all that scoured area, made improvements to the both the principal spillway of the dam and then this emergency spillway. So then fast forward to 2024, that spillway was active again. So there was emergency spillway was active again in 2024. We did end up, can't see it in this picture here, but on the very south bank of that spillway, there was about a 20 to 25 foot stretch that had about a foot or two of scour out of it. But other than that area, everything worked as it should have for that event. And the dam owner has subsequently repaired that area, hopefully get some vegetation established here in the spring of 25, and that should continue to operate as designed. Go ahead. Here we've got an upcoming project with the city where we're starting to really dial in and take a closer look at some of the drainage basins, stormwater drainage basins that are impacting the town. And with that, HDR will actually be leading this particular project as we look closer at some of these basins and what can be done to improve some of the areas. The next slide, what I'd like, hopefully works out here. I've got a video. We'll see if it. See if this works here. So what? Oh, it doesn't want to show. Go ahead. Is there something? Oh, there we go. Try it again. Try that again.
It's showing on our screen, we just have to
Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
get it to reflect on the other screen. Give it a second.
Let's see, you try your screen one. There, can you get to that one?
Oh.
Whoops. Okay, if not, we'll just continue on here.
I'll give it a shot.
All right. We'll try to get that working. It's kind of interesting. It's a 2D stormwater model that shows the water, the various storm events, the water coming through town. And we use that as a visual tool, especially to show clients or the public, you know, this is what happens during a storm event, which most everybody knows that's what happens. But then what you can start to do is input improvements into that model. And you can visually show, there we go, we got it up here now. So we'll just.
It should be going.
We'll step through this a little bit.
Okay.
So this is just, yeah, so with this, let's step back to the mic here. A little bit hard to see, but this is, we're looking at Lynn Avenue and Cedar Street. The library and the courthouse is down at the bottom of the screen, bottom center, kind of Cedar Street. You can see the high school. We're going to enter rainfall kind of on the north side of the culvert on Lynn Avenue. And, you know, as obviously when the rainfall gets too much, you can really see that flow of water coming through. So the culvert can't handle it underneath of Lynn. All that water comes down Cedar Street, kind of in a bathtub area. So, you know, obviously it's, can't hold it up here.
I want that happen.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and again, so, you know, this information here, you know, obviously this is existing and everybody kind of knows what happens. But what this is a good tool for is now, okay, let's start doing the what ifs. What happens if we, you know, double or triple the 100-year storm event? We start to see those impacts, which you know. But then we can start looking at, okay, how do we start, you know, mitigating this? You know, what happens if we put 5 acres of detention north of the field? What does that do to all of this water? What happens if we put 10 acres up there? What does that do to all this water? You know, what happens if we take some of that water and ditch it or pipe it on the south side of Lynn Avenue and get it over to Beaver Creek? If we do that, you know, what happens to Beaver Creek? So there's lots of things to look at, but having some of these models to show, you know, both the client and the some of the citizens, I think is more valuable than, you know, showing them the analytics, all the analytics behind the model. So it's just a tool that we have that we like to use for these instances. Okay, a few other responsibilities that the city has given us over the years. Permits, we've done various easement exhibits, looking at the design standards, and then you know, we've done some park planning. That was with Confluence up in Sioux Falls, looking at your existing parks, looking where, you know, potentially, you know, future parks could be, what they could look like. We also get involved in the floodplain development events, either providing those, completing those, or if a developer is coming in and wants to build in floodplain, we will review their floodplain permits, make sure everything is accurate on those. We also do some permitting with Danner as far as the rubble site, the mining permit. More important, the future water use allocation that, you know, I think that's on a 3-year permit basis. Danner always comes back and, you know, says you don't need that much. You don't need that much water volume allocated from the aquifer. We continue to argue that, yeah, we need to maintain that level. And so far we've been successful with that. And, having that water supply is, will be vital. Then we also work, and the picture here is where your slurry seal will be taking place this summer. We work with other communities. In this case, it's the city of Sioux Falls who will be bidding this project here in March. We kind of piggyback on their bids. So here in about a month, you'll know who your contractor is and what that cost is going to be. Again, we've done this, I believe, the city of Mitchell with some concrete crushing. That's been a number of years ago now that we've used that, but mainly now it's the city of Sioux Falls with their slurry seal project. The only one I really wanted to kind of key in on this particular slide is, so we get involved in obviously the site plan review and subdivision plan review as developers or builders come in and want to put up a new building or expand, what have you. We want to make sure that what they're doing is according to the ordinance, subdivision ordinance, zoning ordinance, design standards, and if they're not meeting those, obviously point those out and make sure that they deal with those either through variance or making a change to their site plans. It is going through, making them go through the site plan review and the subdivision plan review. It is and will be an expense to them, but it just guarantees that to the city that you're getting what your ordinance and your standards are calling for. And then if there's variances to that, then they have to come to planning and zoning most likely for variances to those. So with that, I'm going to have Delron speak a little bit about kind of how the typical funding roadmap that we've followed for the city of Canton.
Good afternoon. The chill is coming in, isn't it?
No, I'm good.
But so I just talk about a few projects that Myron highlighted as well. So we've done the design along with Myron for the wastewater system, and we keep up with your staff on keeping them trained on what they need to do. You've had a lot of turnover over the years, so keeping them up. A big part of the project for the wastewater project was, certainly number one, securing the funding, low interest loan and grant funding, and then pulling that all together and working with the state to get your permit. You have a very unique wastewater effluent permit for your wastewater treatment plant because you're allowed to discharge based on a pounds limit versus a concentration limit. And I won't get into the details, but it saved the city a lot of money to not have to build a wastewater treatment plant. Another project I'll touch on is the South Lincoln Interconnect. We were able to kind of pull that design along with JSA. And we actually designed that and worked with the city to get it built, and the city built it themselves, right? So we kind of helped them get the piping and the interconnect and the metering building all built with a building that was basically ordered by the city, and they didn't have to incur the cost of a contractor for getting that built. It was a major savings, which is, I would say, pretty unique in the engineering field right now for being able to work with staff and Ryan and the group to basically get that building constructed. And then certainly the emergency repair, that's where a lot of this follows these lines as well, is, you find out that your sewer's downstream out in a field somewhere. I was absolutely impressed with how Myron pulled everything together with that environmental and the state, and he'll talk about his relationships with the state and that kind of thing to get that repair done. That's kind of the lifeline of the city to keep that all connected for the industrial park and all that growth over there. So we certainly were involved with helping with the environmental, but GSA and Myron's group pulled that plan set together, got that out to bid, got contractors interested in a really tough project. And, I guess I can't say more than the character and professionalism and ethics of Myron and his group are exceed anybody that I've worked with. So in walking through this, we have as we identify our projects, we identify the funding, get the funding proposal pull together in the engineering report on these projects, do the funding review, and pull these application submissions in. And that's really what's been able to get the city these low interest loans and the grant funds that you have for these projects. It does require a match, like even the Christmas Lake funding, right? We went through the NRCS, and we actually had an ex-NRCS program manager that works for us as our office manager in Bismarck. And he kind of helped us work with the state to get the 75% grant funding. Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, but 75% grant funding and a 25% match pulled together. But that's the challenge of all the grants, is the city still has that match, right? It's almost always, certainly for the wastewater system, the interest on that loan was 2%, right around 2%. So better than the cost of inflation for what you were able to get for the loan, along with the grant that you received at roughly 36%. So just some things to highlight.
Ron had mentioned some of the agencies that we've been involved with over time as we've on the funding side, and then after the funding is somewhat put together, we get involved on the permitting and the regulation side, local and state and national agencies that we all get involved with. And we've got contacts with those agencies, whether it be Danner Office of Emergency Management, either at the state or the Herald here at the county, DOT, FEMA, NRCS, etc. We've got good working relationships with those agencies, so we can leverage those relationships as we start to not also on the funding side, but as we get into the project design, permitting, and then the regulation as well. Just for the city of Canton itself, almost $3 million in grant funds we've helped secure over time, and about $8 million in low interest loans. Delron touched upon it. If you can get interest at that 2.1, 2.2%. Below the cost of inflation, that's really a benefit for the city. Most of those loans are state revolving loan, SRF funds for the most part, working through Andy's team at Danner for those. I wanted to do a quick slide here on our kind of philosophy of our invoicing. With our clients, we invoice on a time and materials basis, basically for an hour of time multiplied by our hourly rates. It's our basically time and materials. I used Northwest Street for this example, so we've got an estimate of about $3.8 million roughly, and this is kind of the path that we are following with that project. We've done some work on the concept side. We've helped prepare the facility plan. We did prepare the facility plan. We've had some environmental work on it, a number of estimates. And then we've helped, Harley with CCOG with developing some of the apps. And then we entered into the design contract with the city back in November. And all these again are, basically time and material and a not to exceed amount. If you remember back when we finished up the Beaver Creek station, which was roughly the same contract amount, I think it was about $270,000 for the design of Beaver Creek. Based on our time that we actually incurred, I think that final number was about $255. So we were about 10% less than what the contract amount was. On the flip side of that, another common method of invoicing is a percent of construction. And typically now that's ranging from 20 to 25% of your estimate. I use 20% for this example. Mainly, You may not see any costs incurred for concept design or maybe even the facility plan, some of the funding apps. You may not see that cost. Where you start to see that is when you do get into the final design and construction admin. That percent of construction then can be quite a bit more, and typically is more than your time and materials contracts. And going forward, I would time and materials is a really a benefit for the city of Canton. It's more economical, and you also have an idea of where that each staff member is, an hour of time, where that hour is going. On a lump sum, it's a little harder to follow, what are they actually doing for that percent of construction dollar amount. Quick update on Northwest Street. That got kicked off in November. Survey's complete. Final design is underway. We've coordinated some utilities with Lincoln County already. We'll be meeting with their engineer here again in about a month or so, maybe not that long. Start talking about, how do we access, or how do they access the site, their site, while West Street is being constructed. It's kind of a limited access at, at this point. So we'll have to put our heads together and see what we can figure out there. We've identified easement needs, a number of temporary easements, and there's a few permanent easements that we need from the adjoining property owners. We'll start meeting with them probably in March, April, and start seeing how receptive those property owners are to granting easements. We do plan on sitting down with city staff here in the next couple weeks to go over the plans as we currently have them, just to make sure that we've got the utilities where they want them. Make sure what we've got down on paper is kind of what they want to see for the most part. We will be driving through the project with staff just to go through some areas of constraint. If any of you want to join us on that, we'd be more than happy to have you come along, and we can explain why we're doing things, and then point out some of those issues. The more information we can get in your hands, you'll have that information at hand when citizens do contact you. You'll have that firsthand knowledge of the project. So with that, in conclusion, you've been here for almost 4 hours now, or a little more. You're probably tired of engineers yapping at you, but I just 5 key things. For JSA to keep being the city engineer for the city of Canton. My experience as your representative, 20 plus years of working just here in Canton, 30 overall. We've got unmatched, knowledge of the community just based on that experience. No other firm can claim that level of, understanding. We've got that trusted relationship with city staff, administrative staff, maintenance staff, and also with some of the community members at large that we've had the pleasure to work with over the years. Measurable results for the city, millions in grant funds and millions in those low interest loans. And with our partnering with HDR, there's really no problem, or I should say no opportunity that's too big that we can't solve for the city of Canton. So I guess with that,
questions? Yeah.
Questions. You can flip to the next slide and kind of shows just a scattering of various projects that I've had the opportunity to work on around Canton. But and questions at this time?
I have multiple questions. And I'm gonna need your video if you can go that.
Sure.
I'll have you pause it when I ask.
Now you're testing.
Now
You got the IT guy over here.
See how good HDR is at IT, right?
That's right. I'll find the slide.
Actually, it's probably right there.
Oh.
Just slide it. All right, Commissioner, where?
Yep, anywhere in there.
Anywhere in there?
Anywhere in there.
All right, there we go.
So I'm gonna come at you, and it's only out of pure respect that you've been doing this for 30 years. Please understand that. Christmas Lake was built when? Christmas Lake housing,
Oh, let's see, early 90s,
90s to 2000s
somewhere in there.
is what I've been informed.
Yep.
So I don't wanna put myself in school, but 30 years ago?
Yep.
Okay, and then what was our next development?
Maybe Blair Estates
Yep.
or the,
Yep.
you know, some of the industrial park got to be developed, yes.
So I'm gonna say that lovely place is mine. So that's why this is personal and that's why I watched this happen. So go ahead and push play. You're gonna watch Blair Estates that was developed in 15 get infiltrated with water. Pause it.
Oop, hang on, I got that. It's coming back.
Pause it and slide it over.
I guess I'm asking, what infrastructure have we updated in storm sewer to our two newest housing developments to make this, I'm saying Christmas Lake and Blair Estates were severely impacted every single time we get water. What are we doing to add an ounce of prevention for this to happen? I mean, we're not even caring about our newest homes in our the last 30 years. Is what I see that what I, as a water and sewer commissioner, we haven't done anything.
Sure. So with Christmas Lake, when that was reconstructed, the modeling for both the principal spillway and the emergency spillway were changed and increased, so it was more capable of passing that major storm. So the improvements were made to the principal spillway, and the emergency spillway was widened and lowered slightly just to be able to reduce that high water behind that. And again, based on the major storm event for the area, which is 6 inches over 24 hours, which obviously
we've seen 14, we've seen
Correct.
19, we've seen 24.
Correct. You've seen more than 24 is obviously quite a bit more than that. So with on Blair Estates, the detention area to a small detention area just to the east side and southeast side. That water is meant to back up into that and again meet that major storm event capacity. When that gets exceeded, that's when you start to see that go through and around that development. But as far as increasing it more, increasing the improvements more than that, no, there has been no.
Right, so I guess what I want to know is where have we dropped the ball as a city, as a commission, as engineers, as CCOG? Where is the ball being dropped? How are we not securing funds to get things so we don't see this again? I feel like we're not doing anything.
Sure.
We're just patiently waiting for the next one.
Sure.
We did we're all like.
The H&H,
An
yeah.
H&H study in
Right.
what?
That was 11, no, it's been
11?
11, yep. And that did identify locations and concerns and cost estimates to move forward. But no, from that, there really has not been, we've done some work on the south side of town with this last project with the Beaver Creek trunk sewer project.
Yep.
That came to fruition on the, kind of the sanitary sewer was driving that.
Right. And the
And since we were working in that area, then we would make those improvements.
Sure.
And I think that's a lot of, when we're working in an area where we can, double up on those improvements, that's what we've been able to do. But as far as specifically driving these other improvements from that 2011 study, no, there hasn't been any movement from those. I guess on my side, I could have kept pushing those, knowing that it's, this major event is happening every 5 to 10 years instead of 100 years.
Right. So do you feel like we're as a commission dropping the ball? And I'm saying these chairs have switched, ultimately Tyler's been here the longest, or Sandy's been here the longest as far as our commission, but I want to know what, because I wasn't here, what are the prior administrations done working with you and not securing funds to get things taken care of? Where's the ball being dropped?
Sure. Yeah, how I want to,
Go ahead and say
I've never, and maybe that, some of that is on myself, as I have not pushed that hard enough, knowing from the commissions that there's other priorities at the time of getting other improvements done. But I never pushed that as hard as maybe I should have.
And a lot of it comes down to the nuts and bolts of these things. If you look at some of that 11 study, you start looking at $3 and $4 and $5 million projects. And at the end of the day, where that money comes from is the citizenry of Canton, whether it comes through property tax opt-outs, general obligation bonds, increased water and sewer rates. I mean, at the end of the day, that's where all this money comes from. And at some point, it becomes too much for the public to bear. And granted, nobody wants to see some of these floodings happen, but when you're looking at a $5 million project in a dry year, people are going to say, why are you spending the money for this?
Sure. So the previous engineers that have come in here and interviewed with us have said they're working on 22 blocks in a community. That has to be over $5 million.
Sure.
Yep. These little towns that I'm traveling to and seeing their infrastructure updates, and I come home to our first one in a large amount of years. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I completely understand we can't be doing this. I see it with communities in Harrisburg and T and that sort of thing. I obviously am aware of that. What I don't see is I want someone to tell me, were they just sitting on their hands for 40 years and we weren't doing anything? Because we shouldn't be in this situation.
One
right?
thing,
You guys have been here this long. I'm just asking, like, prior to you getting on the board,
Are you talking about grants or are you
I'm
talking
talking
about
about
raising?
raising funds, raising money, getting loans. It's like Canton fell off the face of the earth in the 80s, and then here in the 2000s, let's get something done. We didn't do anything.
So somebody needs to bring it forth and say, we're bite the bullet, say we're raising these. Then you're gonna.
Well, we can't raise it all at once.
No.
That's what I'm saying is
No.
I want you to have the best relationship possible with CCOG or.
And then you wanna bring up the point about grants that the city of this size can and cannot get.
we're kind of in the real fickle of that, we're too large of a town for small town grants, which some of these towns qualify. We're also too wealthy of a town to give the poor town grants.
I will say, like, I live in Hartford, and our water bill, our water bill right now in Hartford, where my wife and I live, is $135 a month. So I don't know what you guys are typically paying, but we have been doing a lot of upgrades to our town, but the citizens are paying for that, and that's a 30-year loan. So something to keep in mind for improving those.
Who was Nielsen's engineer?
Gerhard Griffin, I believe.
Were there a lot of feedback and back and forth about his drainage plan and design at the time?
I believe so, yep, because it was built on city property. So yeah, they provided the drainage model, drainage information. We did the review on that, on what was going on. So, and that, using their typical standard, H&H procedures, it was sized accordingly.
Did they come in with the plan to build on the city property? Or was that something they were short on, that the city identified the need for the detention?
It was, at the time, they were short on detention, and the city had the adjacent property, and it was, kind of a dual purpose, because there was some, it's a benefit to some of the city property as well.
Sure. Thank you.
My question is kind of similar to what Chris asked, but how do we be more proactive with infrastructure changes and other changes that need to take place in the community? Is that on us as a commission? Is it on you as an engineer? Is it all of us combined? I mean, since these things aren't happening and they need to, we kind of need some direction on how to proceed.
Sure. So what I've been, I value the instruction and guidance that I get from the city, because you're the locals, kind of the local control, guiding me on what I'm doing. What I can do is make that more concerted effort, stay in more contact with, Lynn Keller at CCOG, Harley at CCOG, and just keep more in front of them, and see if, to help the city, even if you're not looking, for a particular, project, what have you, is, I can make that a, concerted effort on my end to, lobby more for, these obviously these kinds of projects, which we have been on the moving forward with on the H&H. I've always, always favored the local control. Communities come to us and say, well, this is really what we need. This is what we want you to do, rather than me going to you or somebody else saying, well, this is what you need to do. Obviously we've got identified projects, and we can now start to make that more concerted effort on your behalf, and we will. But over time, with all of our contacts, we have been, making those contacts all along, because we do have those good working relationships with those agencies. But we can certainly, keep trying to do more all the time for the city.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much for having us in today.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
For coming.
We don't have this is just a.
Thanks, Byron.
Thank you, Donna.
Yep.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Katie Boyd.
Oh, boy.
Awesome.
if I have that on.
That's right.
This is yours.
Put bathroom break or anything, and then.
Let's go for the rest of it.
Thank you, Jeff.
That's my mouse.
We need a motion. Want to make a motion to go into executive session?
Motion.
Second.
Commissioner Stivers. York. Larson. Biggers. Everyone says
Aye. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
No, it's not.
Shut these bad boys off.
Is she, when you do exec, does she normally just turn it off and not record the end of the meeting? Yep. Okay.
The only time we've ever recorded more is.
You knew that you had business.
A little dry in here.
It's hot in here.
No, it isn't. It's cold.
5 feet further.
Take your sweatshirt off, Paul.
Strip down to my underwear or what?
I didn't